everybody to Ultimate Sensei. Today we are doing our Endgame challenge. I am the commissioner and host of this second season of Endgame Sensei, and I am delighted to be joined by a season 1 participant, Max, aka Chess Gains. Hi, Max.
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
Welcome to the show. Fantastic to have you and see you again. Um, it looks like it's okay, Trit. I think we're live. Um, Max participated in season 1, which similarly had 2-player teams and a coach. Max started season 1 as the 7th pick and finished in 3rd place in the final tournament. And you didn't stop improving there. Max, what have you done in the last year?
Well, since tournaments have resumed, which I played my first at the end of May, I've gained almost 200 USCF points. So, uh, yeah,
Yeah,
and still work in progress. I'm
still a
playing one
work in
more
progress.
in a week.
How many OTB tournaments have you played about in 7 months?
Yeah, I'd say roughly a dozen or so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. That's nice. One per month, I think, is enough to sustain good progress. But if you're able to occasionally get 2, that's all good. That's all good. So we'll get more time to chat throughout the day. But now, for all the fans, we're going to introduce our contestants. So here we go to the big view, and now you all can see everybody who's here today. And if you're in chat, now's a great time to let your favorite person or just the person you're betting on know that you're supporting them. I know sometimes you support somebody just because you bet on them and you want to be right about things. It doesn't even mean you like them. You're just like, I think Seth's going to win this competition, so I'm going to bet on him. And then you just have to root for him because you want to be right. Oh no, Seth's betting against himself already. Anyway, how are you guys doing? This is going to be even less nerve-wracking than 2 weeks ago. Are you feeling relaxed and happy?
Yeah, generally.
Drit's good. Lars is good. Eric, a little bit less so. We should probably give a special introduction to Eric, aka Rengao, who is joining us as a replacement for Blue Jay. Blue Jay had to withdraw for personal reasons that I'm not going to get into, but we definitely wish him all the best, and we're sorry not to have him here with us. But we're also happy to have you, Eric. So thanks for stepping up and hopping in and trying to fit in some big shoes because Jay went out on a high note 2 weeks ago. He showed off his tactical skills. He moved up in our power rankings. But now we'll see where you fit in here. Is there anybody here who feels like they're particularly good in endgames relative to other phases of the game? Maybe Seth? One maybe. No enthusiastic yeses. Well, someone must be selling themselves short. Like, one of you has to be relatively better at endgames than the others are, and we will find out who you are today. All
I
right,
have a
so I'm
strong
gonna
strategy of be less bad
be
today.
right. Be less bad might be enough. Yeah. Often endgames are something where very few people have much confidence, but Max is a fantastic endgame player, and that's one of the reasons why it's perfect to have him on today.
I try to be.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to go over the rules now, not just for the viewers and fans, but also for the players. They don't know the rules yet. So I'm going to bring up an image or two here to show you all the format for today. So first of all, contestants, you will be playing 6 games today. All 6 games will be end games. And in fact, there'll only be 3 different positions. So like if I give you a certain position and you're like, oh, this is so busted for black and he gave me black, you'll get to play it with white as well. Okay, so you'll play 3 different end games. and you'll play each of those end games twice. Any questions on that part? Okay.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is, I just want to state it, like,
Yeah.
we're not, no post-game analysis or game review of how it went because we're going to play the position again.
Because you will play the position again, it's very important what you do or don't do with the 2 to 3 minute break between games. Okay.
Are we allowed to look at an engine?
So you are not allowed to look at an engine.
Okay.
You are also not allowed to call Kostya, Kavutsky, or anybody like that on speed dial. Okay? What you can do is you can talk to Falk. For you, Dritman, right? You can talk to your teammate. So between games, there will be deliberately a couple minute break where you can check in with your teammate and say, like, I think this pawn's weak. And they say, no, I think that pawn's weak. Or I think we should try to queen. And they say, but we don't have a passed pawn. And you say, oh, yeah, thanks for telling me. So you are going to have a break. It's not going to be like down to the second perfection, but you should expect that it'll be on the order of 3 minutes to talk with your teammate.
So as a team, we're both going to play the same position then.
Yes. And you'll be matched up round by round with another team. So like Katrina, when you play Dritman, let's say, then you would know, let's see, your teammate is, no.
Lars.
Your teammate is Lars. You would know that Lars is playing against Falk when you're playing against Dritman. And that they're playing the same position as you.
Got it.
And then you'll flip colors.
And then we're going to switch sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would, like, let's say both have white in the first round, and then you would switch opponents, and you would both get black.
Okay.
So if you have white against Dritman, you'll have black against Falk. And Lars would start with white against Falk and then black against Dritman.
Okay.
Okay. And so over the course of 6 games, you will play each person once except for Lars, right? Except for your own teammate.
Right, because then we'll just switch.
Yeah.
Our team will be playing, but
so
differently.
you'll play against, let's say, Team Matt. You'll play both people on Team Matt. Then the next new position you'll play against both players from Team Kostya. And then in the next round you'll play against both people from Team Sasha.
You first go as white, you change the position right away, you go into black, and then it's going to be 3 other positions. Is that how that works?
So you'll have the same position with white and black against one team.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the next pair of games, it'll be the second position.
So there will be a position where I have to play white against Eric and black against Lula from the same of that position.
Yes.
Or vice versa.
Right.
That's right.
And that's what we're going to be. That's what we have the 2 minutes to discuss.
Yes. So you'll have a couple minutes. So you have a couple minutes between those games to discuss when you actually know the position. There will also be a 2 or 3 minute break between round 2 and round 3 where you don't yet know the position for the next round. But you can either decompress or talk to your chat or talk to your teammate. It's up to you what you do with those minutes.
Right, and that's the exact same between like round 4.
Between round 4 and 5, yeah. You won't have a position to discuss, but you'll get a 3 minute break.
Got it.
You can do with it whatever you think as well. Like if you think your teammate needs cheering up, that could be a good thing to do with that time. For example, it could be like psychologically coach your teammate. Because one other thing about the format today is that the prizes are going to be team prizes. So we're going to add the score of 2 players on a team. Okay, so you're playing chess, which is an individual game, but it definitely has a feeling of a bit of a team event today, because at the end I'll add, let's say, Katrina's score and Lars's score together. And that'll be the score for Team Andras. Right? And then we'll compare that to the other scores and see if your team has earned $300, $200, or $100 for the 4 prizes. Okay. Let's see. That actually covers most of today's format, other than just, I'll start the games for you. I'll sort of spoof the command. You just have to be in live chess.
What's the time control?
And the games will pop up for you. You will have 8 minutes with an additional 5-second increment. which I think will be
For each, yeah.
which I think will be adequate for these positions because you'll be well more than halfway into a game compared to if you were playing a 15-5. Seth, your question?
How will do we need to get like in a Discord call with our teammate or something? Like, how are we going to have those discussions?
It's up to you how you want to chat with them.
Okay.
The one thing is like absolutely don't click on like an evaluation bar or a chess.com engine or something like that.
Oh yeah, I was just talking about like the
yeah.
verbal.
For verbally with your teammate, you could talk to them on Discord or you could talk to them with the Zoom chat. There's an option in the Zoom chat. Instead of to everyone, you can chat to a specific person. So you could chat like that. You could call each other on the phone. I don't, and yes, there are 2 individual stakes involved today. So the player winning first place today. Oh, sorry, it's a mistake on my graphic. But the player getting first today gets at least the 2nd seed in the final tournament, which will be like a bracket, meaning that they would play against the 7th seed when we get to the final weekend. So it'll be an advantage to be the higher seed. So first prize today, from an individual perspective, you get at least the 2nd seed. If you also win the Blitz tournament, you'll get the 1st seed. And whoever finishes 2nd today will get the 2nd seed instead of you. So the 2nd seed is on the line today. And finally, the person finishing in 8th place today individually would be relegated to the elimination challenge. So when we get to the finals, they will have to pass a test to get into the finals. And one note on that is if you get 8th place this week, but then you win the Blitz tournament, winning the 1st or 2nd seed automatically pulls you out of that 8th place thing. So that also rescues you from elimination if you get 1st place in any of the competitions. So if Ty or Eric end up winning the Blitz, the tactics challenge from 2 weeks ago, that would also make them safe from the elimination challenge. Okay. Any questions on that? I know there are like a couple like slightly tricky scenarios, but the idea we're going for is like finishing in 8th place is bad, so try to avoid that. Like, it's really good to win the tournament, but if at some point in the standings you don't feel like you're winning the tournament, you can definitely like do your best to not end up in 8th place, and that'll be worth fighting for. Okay. If that sounds good, or at least passable to you, I'm going to start preparing the play commands. Maybe you could all make sure that you're in live chess, and let us know if you've got any other questions. Players seem...
So we can start analyzing as soon as our games are finished, right?
Yes. If your partner's still playing, you can analyze on your own.
Right.
If your partner is not still playing, you can talk to your partner about the game. Okay. And all right. I have an endgame puzzle up right here, which chat can try and solve while I input the matches. First, I'm gonna try and follow some of you all so that I'll be ready to watch all the games when they pop up. I can't follow Falk, so
familiar.
he must not be logged into live chess. Is it Jim Joe Bob?
Bob Joe Jim.
Bob Joe Jim?
It's persistent of an old middle school online
Yes,
alias.
white to play in the puzzle. Good question. If it were black to play, the puzzle would be fairly easy. But you can try and figure that out first. If that looks... Try and figure that out first, actually. Black to play, see if it's easy for you to win. And then once you are confident on that, you can try and figure out how white to play can win this. That'll be a little endgame challenge for all of you.
At our level, this is what's known as a 3-result endgame.
Dritman, oh wait, no. The reason I'm unable to follow you is because there's a number at the end of Dritman, right?
Yeah, it's 13.
13. Thank
Trying to
you.
get rid of that number.
Okay, a one note for the contestants. You need to make your first move within 1 minute, I think, on chess.com when I start a game for you. So even if you might want to spend like 4 out of 8 minutes thinking about the position, you actually are not able to, or it will abort your game.
It's just gonna like pop up.
It'll just
Can we
pop
blame
up for you.
Britman as the local chess.com staff? Could we blame him for that?
No blaming anybody. Nope. That's Jesse's job. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You can blame me. I'll probably just blame Seth.
All right, I've got all 8 of you followed. That means you're all there. So I am going to starting the games. Good luck to all of you. I hope it goes great.
So we should leave audio?
And you can
Good
now
luck, guys.
leave audio.
Good luck.
Luck.
I hope you all lose.
Lovely sentiment. And the first game is up. Second game is up. And all right, all 4 games have been started. They are off. Max, do you know how to watch their games?
Well, I mean, I have it up on a different screen, but that's
Okay.
a little bit inconvenient. So I don't know if you could
I
maybe
can-
share, or I could open it up.
I can give links if you like.
Yeah,
to
that
the
would work.
games. So do you prefer that in Discord or in Zoom?
Zoom is okay.
Okay. So here's a game. And the other thing you can do is you can just type some follow commands on some of these people here. So you can do follow Driven 13. All right, that should get you all the games soon enough. So our very first game that we've got up here, and I hope chat, can you all see these games correctly? Can you see what's going on? Does this look all right to all of you? The very first game we have Bob Joe Jim and Nargave playing fairly quickly out the gate, centralizing their kings. And then Bob Joe Jim going and making a pawn trade on the queen side right away. Pawn takes, king takes. And now Nargave settling in to have some think about this. The H file is cut off just a drop. You're right. Let me make that just a little bit better. Max, what do you think of Bob Joe Jim's approach to this first game here?
Good start, I think. I mean, activating the king is natural, and making that pass pawn. I think even with Narg having the 4-on-3 on the king side, might not be enough for him to survive this one.
Mm-hmm.
Because once he pushes that A pawn far enough, it's going to be too much of a distraction, I think, for Black's king.
Yeah. Did you notice anything that Nargave could have tried better than what he's done so far?
Well, let's see. I think a5 was not such a good idea.
So while the kings were rushing to the center, he actually pushed a pawn on the side of the board,
Yeah.
where it looks like he's going to end up facing a passed pawn from white. So that might be one defensive error there. Yeah. Now let me turn to a completely different game where the queenside hasn't been touched, between Seth Lichtenstein or Steen and Velcro Dot. And do you think Black's doing better in this game than on the other board?
Maybe a bit better, but I still think that white is in the driver's seat here.
Still in the driver's seat. Do you think overall that the position I gave them favors white from the very beginning here?
I have to think so, yeah, with the 2-on-1 majority.
Yeah.
I
I
learned
remember
the hard way how strong that queenside majority can be.
Sorry, say that again?
I said I learned the hard way how strong that queenside majority can be.
You learned it by playing.
Yes.
Very good.
Well, granted, it was a little bit of a different scenario, but yeah, it can be really, really tough to defend against the 2-on-1 on the queen side.
Yeah, I remember when I was young, one of my earliest teachers, and I mean, I'm not sure how they said it versus how I understood it. You know, they may have explained it with much more detail and grace, but they told me that some of these endgames were basically winning just off of a queenside pawn majority. And I think they may, like, the way I understood it, it was like very general. It was like king and pawn endings, knight and pawn endings, bishop and pawn endings, rook and pawn endings. Like, it was like you could win any endgame with equal pawns just by having this little majority off to the side.
Yeah.
And now I think it's a little bit trickier. I don't think it's like a paint by numbers win for white by any means, but we'll see whether or not white makes a killing in this first round.
Definitely chances.
Let's see if I can
some of these games, but
let's see if I can find a board where you think black's doing well. How about we turn
yeah,
to
I'm just trying to get the other two games open right now.
Yeah, let's try and turn to Renga and Falk. We'll go through all four boards and see how everybody tried to start their game. So looking at Renga and Falk, we see that Renga decided to prioritize a little bit more pushing the queenside pawns forward, and therefore Falk was prioritizing bringing the kings forward and ended up with the king one step further into the center than white. Whereas on a lot of the other boards, I think we saw a white king on f4 or c4.
Yeah, it looks like Falk has got definitely the best chances to hold out of anyone.
Okay. So here, if Renga makes a passed pawn, you feel like it's close enough that the black king is strong enough to kind of maybe catch it and even still defend the king side.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think how white is going to make progress here. I mean, they could try to play for some Zugzwang, but...
Right. They could shuffle the king.
I think that the king would be close enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mein, one thing is if Renga made a passed pawn here with b5, then it would be a passed b pawn. Whereas if we remember the first game that we looked at between Bob Joe Jim and Nargave, because of the early a5, when white made the passed pawn, they recaptured with the king, and so their passed pawn is the a pawn, which is a further step away from the king side. Maybe that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's interesting actually looking at the game. Some have a passed a pawn and some have a passed b pawn.
Yeah.
And some obviously don't have a passed pawn yet, but
and some of them are getting into really intense phases. But I still want to check on our fourth board, and our fourth board is Lula Robs against Dritman. Well, the boards are in no order. It's just the fourth board we're getting to. And what are Dritman's chances in this position with the queenside pawns as they stand?
I like white here because of the king. But I think the king position is really huge here because eventually he's going to get to play b4. If they make the trade, he's going to have the passed a pawn, which again is going to be a big distraction. If not, then he's going to pushes pawn to b5, and again he's going to have a passed pawn.
Ooh.
I think, although the fact that he has the e pawn so far advanced, he could have some counterplay there, but
Right. So compared to some other games, Drittman has his kingside pawn majority looking a little bit stronger, a little bit more like counterplay.
Yeah.
I remember learning that a pawn on a5 could hold back like a4 and b3 if you got this structure. And that would be the case if black's king were on c5. It would be like, uh-oh, how does white make a pass pawn?
So
But
there
with
you
the
go.
white
She
king
goes
on
b4.
c4, Lula forces through b4, gets the outside passed a pawn, and
Yeah.
probably
I
that
think the
pawn
one
is stronger
concern,
than the counterplay.
yeah, the one concern for her is that if she eventually goes their king running for like the h pawn, the base of the chain, that he can play like f4, e4. So she's got to watch out for that.
Mm-hmm. She'll have to keep a good defensive formation because to attack these pawns on h7, her king will be way outside the box of any passed pawn
Right.
that Drittman makes. And Drittman waits with the king on b6. And I'm going to click around really quickly and see if there's any game where it seems like someone's already winning or the game's reaching
I think
the
Seth
end.
is pretty much just ready to clean up.
He's got the king in position to start eating pawns, and Velcro Dot's last move was h5, suggesting some kind of last-ditch
Ooh,
mischief.
look at what's going on in Bob Joe Jim's game against Narg.
Oh, my goodness. A breakthrough.
Wow.
We're going to back up one move. The white king
That
gets
was
in,
an amazing
ready
play.
to eat everything. And h4 from Nargave. King takes f5, g3, trying to distract the f pawn from stopping the e pawn. Takes.
Unbelievable. That's like that old pawn endgame. Like, I don't know if it's a study, if it's actually from an old game, but
Yeah.
there's like that similar breakthrough theme.
Oh, man. So, although some may first see this position and think white's completely winning, and I wonder what people in chat think, but maybe we'll take a poll of them if they think it's good for white or winning for white or good for black. It looks like black's scoring the first point right here. I mean, this looks...
Yeah. Clearly, I mean, there's always tricks.
This looks done.
There's always somewhere to go wrong.
Let's see if we can find like a defense for white or if this was always going to be a problem. I go back to move 13 where black has just played h4, which sort of threatens g3. And what would you have suggested to Bob Joe Jim here?
I think just play g3 himself just to fix those pawns in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that protects your pawn on f2 in a way.
Yeah, because then, I mean, he can trade, but you'll take by h pawn, and then black doesn't have a breakthrough there. Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's something you got to watch out for. Wow. It's really brutal in king and pawn endgames. One little pawn break can just completely decide the game.
Yeah. So I think if g3 had been played, Bob Joe Jim was actually winning. So this doesn't necessarily change our evaluation of the endgame to see this game, but it does remind us that whether you've got a winning or losing endgame, you still have some input on whether or not you win or lose based on how well you play.
Oh my God! Look, what I said about Lula Robs' game, it's exactly happening.
Oh, those pawns have gotten away as well. That looks like a second win for black.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was just thinking, what does white have to do first? I was thinking before going king c5, probably you have to play I guess g3, right? Again.
Mm-hmm.
Try to slow the pawns down.
Yeah, that's correct. The same
Yeah, because
move.
f3 wouldn't work because then they would still have e4 later.
The same move as
Oh,
on the
boy.
other board.
That's...
And Lula
It might
Robs.
actually be 50-50 this round. I think it's going to be 2 for white and 2 for black.
Mm-hmm.
Although maybe even Fall can hold. So actually there might be more black wins than...
There might be. We've seen two games
Yeah.
which I would say are clear wins for black. Bob Joe Jim's in the tank here. We're going to steal a look at his face for a second. See how he's feeling about this. Oof. Oof. Tough. So, I mean, we see 2 points for black, I would say pretty certain. But where are the
Hopefully
points
Seth
going to come
doesn't
for white?
stalemate here. I'm just looking at Seth's game. Velcro Dot is setting a little stalemate trap.
Oh, yeah. But this is a very, very high chance that this should be a point for white right here from Seth. So then,
the H pawn, she has to push it, so this should be.
so then the most
Should be
complicated
decisive.
game is going to be Renga and Falk. They're fighting on both sides of the board on this game. Dripman just scored the first point here.
Yeah. And it looks like Narg should be cleaning up soon. Just has to stop that F pawn. Anything can still happen in Renga versus Falk, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, F4 fighting over this. And these two players are going to use up all their time by the end of this game. G4 to lock it up.
Wow, I'm starting to. I mean, the thing, Black always has to watch out for those outside pawns. They're kind of not going anywhere. So, like, even if White had to play King C3 and give the Black King passage, White should still be in charge there.
You think if White
But
lets
they're
the
both getting
Black
low
King
on
into
time.
F3, White's always going to queen first. Oh, we've got a second point, and it comes for Black as well. Nargate.
Wow, who would have predicted 2 Black
That's a
wins to
point.
start things off? I most certainly would not have. All right, Seth looks to be in position to strike back for White.
Yeah, is he avoiding the stalemates? Seth should be an expert on stalemates because he himself never resigns. So he gets a lot of games played out to the last move. There we go. We catch a checkmate on screen as Seth scores a point, which keeps the
And
match
Renga is getting-
between those teams equal.
Renga getting low on the clock here. He's trying to calculate some. Okay, King C3. I think that was the right decision.
Down to 20 seconds. The danger was with how well placed Falk's king is. If he pushes b5 too soon, Falk goes and attacks the pawn, and his king does not get into the king side. Like,
Yeah, King
comes
E3
up
might
here
have
and
been
can't do
losing,
anything.
but King C3, I think White is still in good shape.
right, if he'd gone the other way, king to e3, then of course king c4 would probably have been winning.
Yeah. So what does Black play now? Does he play E5, F5? Probably not F5 because after King E3, well, then he'll still have E5 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think Black still has good hopes here.
F5 is
Okay, so
chosen
he
by
does go
Falk.
F5.
Okay.
Okay, King
Now
E3,
the big
yeah,
question
more or
is, can
less
he play
forced.
e5? If he can't play e5,
Yeah.
then f5 wasn't desirable either, right? It's just weaken
Right.
the e5 square, and then you fall back. So he almost needs to play e5 here. And then...
Yeah, but I think well, because if E5 and they trade and King takes King C4, then he plays F4. And then he's certainly not losing.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be up a pawn in the queen endgame if he goes that way. So I think the big question is going to be, after takes here, White wouldn't go King C4. They would either play King E3 holding that side of the board, or they would play
Right.
B5 making their pass pawn and starting...
But if
the
they
race.
trade King E3 and King goes back, then White King gets to F4. And eventually Black will be in Zugzwang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
so
he's
E5
made a
he
move.
plays.
Let's see what he's done. He played E5 after a minute of thought, so now they're equal on time with 20 seconds each. The trade comes in.
Alright,
They've
so
got a
it's-
5-second increment, so they shouldn't
If he
flag.
can just find King E3 here.
They shouldn't flag, but they could definitely blunder.
I think King E3 is just game over. Yeah, there we go.
E3 played. Now, there's a last interesting try for Black here, which is to play F4 check, pawn takes F4,
Uh-huh.
King D5.
Yeah. Oh, King D5, yeah.
Yeah. So you're still kind of watching both sides of the board. That makes it very hard for White to pick the right moves here. But I think White's probably winning with best play in all variations at this point.
Yeah, they should be.
But yeah, you definitely
goes
don't
for
want to
it.
flag. Make a move, see what happens. Goes to F5. I think that makes it pretty easy for Rengao to choose B5 and just start pushing that pawn. And that should win the game.
Yeah, that should be it.
I think with the king on d5, it was also winning, actually. It was just harder to calculate. And so that should be revenge, both for white to get to 2-2 this round, and for Team Sasha to equalize the match with Team Kostya.
Yeah, but still 2-2 is not the score that you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
That's it shows. Yeah, you gotta be very precise in these king and pawn end games.
Yeah. All right, so that ends round 1, and we're going to give the players 2 to 3 minutes to talk with each other right now. What do you think, Max? Do you think that when they come back in round 2, do you expect white to score more than 2 points after the players have had a chance to discuss a little bit?
Yeah, I would expect so because I think white has the edge in that starting position, and they will definitely be more aware of those tricks with pawn breaks. So, yeah, I would expect at least 3-1 in white's favor in the next round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you think it's still possible for somebody to score a point with black? It's not like they'll have this completely figured out.
Well, that is possible, but also it's possible that someone could snag a draw.
Yeah, you can have some draws there.
Something like that.
Yeah. All right, so looking at the starting position of this, if you had 2 minutes and you were on one of these players' teams, right? Let's say you were better at this endgame than your teammate. Your teammate had just lost in the first round. What would you tell your teammate in 2 minutes to help get them ready for the next game?
Just tell them king activity. King activation, very important in the beginning. Got to get your king as far, towards the center, towards that pawn majority as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, slowly try to create that outside pass pawn, but also be very cognizant of those little pawn break tricks because I can ruin everything for you if you miss one.
Yeah.
As we saw.
Yeah. Have you ever had like a pawn breakthrough happen to you in a game?
Yes. It happened to me in a daily game I think like a month or so ago. It was brutal because it was a dead drawn king and pawn end game.
Mm-hmm.
And I made one bad move and my opponent like immediately found the pawn break and it was just over.
Yikes. I was watching this blitz match between Hikaru and Dingley Ren the other day, and Hikaru actually had an endgame that was won by a pawn break. Like he transposed to a bishop versus knight endgame where he may have even been down a pawn,
that one.
But he had the 2-on-1 over on the queen side. Classic way to win a game.
Yeah, and his bishop was just ready to kick the knight out if it tried to defend.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was a bishop and knight on the board, but it still had the same feeling of if it had been a king and pawn ending because the bishop could take away the one square the knight needed. So this stuff, it's not like Ding wouldn't have known or seen or understood. He just didn't have any choice as they were getting into this position in blitz. But, just because you know about some breakthroughs doesn't mean you know all of them or that they can't come up and be useful tools in a lot of endgames.
Yeah, that's like a very next level skill, I feel, to not just like understand an endgame, but foresee it so far ahead in the middle game that you know that you're kind of like basically sending the game into that favorable territory.
All right, so I'm going to start games for round 2 now for the players. So, yeah, let's hope that they're ready. So the next pairings here, we've got Nargath is going to be white against Seth Liechtenstein, and these players both won their first round games against their opposing teammates. So one of them will be off to a personal 2-0 start after this. And starting with B4 is Nargath. Not following your number one piece of advice, huh?
Yeah. Starting with a pawn push. Oh boy.
Yeah, let's get their teammates going here as well. Velcro Dot and
Yeah.
Bob Joe Jim. I'll put that on the board so you can see how they started off.
All right. Well, Velcro Dot and Bob Joe Jim both follow the king activation principle. So that's good.
Good start there. All right, and we've got all 4 games going. So we've got Nargave with B4 and Seth with E5. So they're both using their pawns very early in this game. Then
yeah, they're jostling for pawn position rather
Driven
than
and
king
Renga.
position.
Now the kings are coming up, but Renga's gonna get that 1 extra rank of position. Velcro Dot and Bob Joe Jim, they followed you exactly. I mean, just straight bum rush of the kings.
They were the only ones I think that only started with king moves.
The only ones. So now I think you're gonna probably revise your estimation that this should be 3-1 for white, and you're gonna say it's all kind of still a toss-up, huh?
I might have to, yeah. I mean, I think they'll still be more aware of those pawn breakthroughs, so they're less likely to lose.
Mm-hmm.
But it does diminish their winning chances, I feel.
Yeah, and it just tells you that there's still like a skill element here that's going to be equally important, perhaps, as the evaluation on the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all seem to feel that having a pawn on e5 is very important. Which, I mean, it could be an asset, but I think you can never go wrong with getting your king in position first.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to just click through them, and I'm just going to predict results just based on whose king got to the 4th rank. So I'm going to predict that Renga will be one of the players to not lose with black. We'll predict that, well, neither Nargave nor Seth has gone to the 4th rank yet, so I'll wait on my prediction there. I'll predict a win for Velcro Dot against Bob Joe Jim, and I'll wait for Falk and Lula to see who gets their king to the 4th rank.
Yeah, I want to say that with the last move that Falk should again have the edge.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
He got the 3rd rank first, so he could have the 4th rank too. But yeah. I totally agree with you that having the king up on the 4th rank is just absolutely huge. It affects how far you can push your pawns before your pawns become attackable by the opponent's king. Lula pushing another pawn. We'll see if Falk goes king c4 or if he sort of gets scared and makes some kingside pawn move here, like f3 or g3, trying to limit Lula's expansion. Yeah. Oh, I ran a poll, but I didn't see the results, so I don't know what chat thought about this position, but do we know for sure if it's a win or a draw? Asks Super Saiyan. I don't think we even know for sure. Would you be willing to like say that you were certain of the proper result, Max?
Like the proper result with best play?
Yeah.
Let me just think for a minute.
Yeah. White moves first, so if they do bum rush forward like Velcro Dot did, they can always get their king to the 4th rank, in addition to having the outside passer.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it should be a win for white, but it's not like trivial because you have to really be patient, and I think eventually black should up in some zugzwang where they're not able to create like a counter passer that is gonna cause white enough problems. But I think, I mean, there's enough pawns on the board that, as we've seen, there's all the chances for black to, like, practical chances for them to hold or even win. Okay, Narg looks like he's in pretty good shape, making that pawn push to b5. Although he obviously still needs to watch out for Seth's pawn breaks on the queen side.
Right. So this is
Or on
where
the king side, rather.
this is where a move like G3 or something is the missing ingredient in both white losses last round, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Well,
the
I mean, Narg
king
was
on
the one that
D5.
capitalized on it, so we'd like to think that he'll be aware.
That's right. If he loses to something that he already did himself in a previous game, that would be sort of inexcusable on skill.
Yeah. Well, Lula's got an interesting strategy. I think she's trying to make a pawn wall to just keep the king out.
Right. So she doesn't want to let this king approach her pawns. Also, she may be aware at this point that if the pawns get further advanced, you've got these like breakthrough possibilities. Let's see. Lula's teammate is Rengao. Did either of them have a pawn break in their first game?
I think who was it? It was Narg was one.
Yeah, Narg was one, and the other player who won with black was Dritman against Lula.
Dritman, okay.
So Lula would have been on the receiving end of a pawn break, and that might make her want to advance the pawns. And so she may have in mind, if the pawns are further advanced, that she could use that trick herself that she just picked up.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Narg, buddy. No.
Oh, my
Oh, boy.
goodness. And he is upset with himself because...
Didn't we just say that? Yeah, if it happens to him, it'd be a little bit inexcusable.
Yeah, because he knows it's inexcusable. And Seth pumps the fist, takes the point, and Seth is the first person to go to 2 points. He's off to a
He's won
fantastic
both.
start.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. It's easy to overlook because you think, oh, my king is like still close enough to where it can attack those pawns. But yeah, as soon as one gets to e3,
Yeah.
it's over.
Oh, he was lured by this h6 move, right? He thought like, okay, like those pawns are just so juicy on g6.
It's like, it's unfortunate because you just got to play that little defensive move g3, and then you're pretty much immune. But
oh, g3.
tempting. Yikes.
Yeah.
Well, Bob Joe Jim's got the pawn wall fully assembled. So does Lula. That's going to be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and notice the difference in defensive moves. Velcrodot has put a pawn on g3, which I think is the proper formation to weather this like seeming storm. And Falk has put the pawn on f3, which I'm far less convinced by.
Yeah, because if it comes to it, she'll still have that e4 break.
Yeah. And
The
also
pawn on f3 just isn't quite as effective.
Also seems like black can play like g4 and then like h4 threatening h3 or g4
scary.
and e4, and then if you take fe4 push f4. Like I see a lot of ways that
it could go wrong.
That structure could actually get broken through. Now Falk played basically a necessary move here, king c4. If Falk let Lula's king get to c5 and embrace the b5 pawn from the side, oh no, you're never winning that game. You're probably even losing as white. So like you think of it as being good in general in chess to have your pawn majority or a pass pawn getting closer to queening, but if the opponent can just wrap it up and capture it, that's no longer an advantage.
A lot of interesting games coming down to the wire.
Yeah.
Duritman's gone for it. He's gone b5. Will it be fast enough?
And he's doing it directly in response to black playing e5, right? Like they were sitting here, they were holding their position, and black played e5, and then he trades and pushes. And he just wants to play king e4, king e5, and get to the king side. And I think certainly all the winning chances are for white, but you have to calculate carefully if it's enough to win or if it's a draw.
Yeah, it seems to me that it should be enough, but we'll see.
All right, so trade, king c5, king e4, king b5, king e5, king c5, king f6, king d5, king g7, h5, g5, or king e5, king h7, g5, king g6, king f4, h3. Yeah, it looks like white wins in all variations here.
Yeah.
Which is nice for Dripman because I had predicted that Rangel would be one of the people not to lose because of the king position. Here on d5.
Whoa, Velcro just went for b6.
Oh, before we switch there, I think I figured out what Rangel's mistake was.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the e5 move is like part of it, right? But especially recapturing with the f pawn, making an isolated pawn that white can clean up easily. If you take with your king, it's much harder for white to make inroads into your kingside position.
Right, because eventually you have a passed f pawn just going to be farther away from the king.
Yeah. And if white doesn't immediately go for b5, you can then play f5 and again take back with your king, not your pawn. Now you've got a 2-on-1 on the other side as well. So that could be like a good drawing technique.
Velcro Dot and Bob Joe Jim is puzzling me because she played b6 and he played a6.
Whoa.
And I don't particularly like either of those moves.
b6 should take. He may have been afraid of a6, but that doesn't work. The king's close enough. Maybe he thought it was like maybe he miscounted the box and thought it was a breakthrough.
I mean, if he takes, to trade king c6, king d4, it might actually work for white. Oh, but now she pushed. What if she just played king d4? I think he was just stuck there. But okay, her king gets in anyway. But now, he's going to have some counterplay if he can win that a-pawn quickly.
Oh, yeah. b7's a huge mistake, right?
Because when you have a protected pass pawn like that,
yeah,
that is just such an asset. You want to keep that because black can never do anything.
Any preparatory move here, such as king d4, embracing this pawn from the side, and then maybe h4 even, just fixing the whole king side. Takes, and then you just waltz in. She may still be winning, but this is very, very risky because now, in addition to have to calculate everything she's doing on the king side, she has to count with a race where Bob Joe Jim goes and collects the a-pawn.
Another interesting scenario with Falk and Lula now. Because Lula played g4.
Mm-hmm.
And then she took on f3, and I don't know, maybe she could have played like f4 or something first.
Yes.
Because I don't think that trade is particularly good for her.
It's favorable to keep that kind of tension, usually.
Yeah, you want to keep the tension, try to build towards some kind of a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Because now he should have no problems getting rid of that. The pawn is just going to fall.
I think a very strong player in chat, I may have misseen it because there's so much going on, but I think they said that if black goes h4 threatening h3, white can just play h3 themselves and freeze it.
Yeah.
But even there, sometimes there's an idea of e4 in that position. And after fe4, you play f4. You give up every single pawn, right? And then king d3, f3, gf3, gh3, and you're good.
This is really interesting with Falk because after king d4, she can play e3, and then king takes king c5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I think that one's a draw, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Lula's under a minute, and it's a complicated
Finds this e3 move, then yeah, she has good chances.
calculation.
There we go.
Does find e3. Nice move. Calmly takes a sip of her smoothie despite the short time and the pressure here.
King c5, b6. I don't know about b6. Actually, yeah, no, maybe that works. Takes, king f4. I think she might be just in time to draw.
Yeah. She's playing it all correctly as well, despite the low time. Looks very relaxed.
One takes, king takes. Yeah, I think the king is just one square close enough.
You think it's that close? I would think it would be easy for black to draw, but let's count the tempo. King there. King here, king here, king here, king here, king here, king here, king here. By one tempo, huh? Wow. Okay, it's by one tempo. She's
Yeah,
got
if
it.
her king was coming from a6, you would be lost, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. It's only by one tempo. The key is whether the white king can get to g7 or the black king can get to f8. For anyone who wants to like quickly figure out these kind of races. We've got a comment from chat that a6 would have won for white instead of taking on b6. But that's not true because the black king goes to c6, covering the a pawn. And now black still has to pass b pawn. You can't go take the h5 pawn with white or black will queen. So that
Also,
would not have won.
Velcrodot's position is worrying me. Although I also didn't like what Bob Joe Jim just did. That
Oh
made
man,
no sense to me.
this is the race one. King here takes.
Because he just gave up a pawn?
Takes. Oh, it
And
must
her
have been a
G
mouse
pawn
slip
is now
versus
too
h
close.
takes g4 here. There's no use in spending a whole move losing your pawn.
Yeah,
That's all
why
he
would he
lost.
not take? I don't understand.
And Bob Joe Jim is flagging as well, right here.
Oh my goodness. No, because if he took king takes, king b4. Oh, is she gonna? She would have promoted in the corner first.
So Velcrodot scores, and Seth scores. That keeps those
Wow.
that team's match 2-2 as well. I'll flash the scores for everybody for a second here. In the view here, you can see the results so far. Let me put a live position up for us. Drittman against Renga is still intense. I think that
Yeah, wow.
Drittman wins. Yeah, Drittman should win. Oh, the other game just ended. We've had our first draw.
Right?
Falk and Lula Robs.
Wow,
With
it's
a
one and a
draw.
half, 1.5 right now. Which means we're gonna fall short of my prediction.
But it does look like Drittman will collect the last point here with King E4, and White will pull out a narrow 2.5, 1.5 lead after having the chance to think about the position a little bit extra.
Yeah. He's just gonna have to make sure to take the opposition, and he should be set.
Yeah. Drittman's using his time. But yeah, he should have things okay here.
Is there an overall team score for this as well as like an individual score?
Yes. Yes.
So do we know which team is doing the best so far? Is it just 1 point for
They're
a win?
basically all tied at the moment. Let's see. Sasha's team is 5 and 6.
I feel like it should almost be more points to win with black based on this starting position. But
yeah.
I guess it'll compensate in later rounds.
We'll see. If Drittman wins, then I think Team Kostya will win 2.5 to 1.5 their match against Team Sasha. And they'll be the only team with more than 2 points after the first 4 games. So it's going to be very, very close in the team standings here at first. And Drittman still being very careful, using all his time. Falk is watching his teammate with a smile. I think
like
Falk's
that
watching
move.
that game.
But I guess it's fine.
Yeah, it's weird to get too far away from your pawn.
I mean, anything works at this point, I guess, as long as you don't move backwards with the king.
Yeah. But this is the kind of situation where I would be nervous if I were Falk watching my teammate or if I were Kostya watching my team. When like the point's already in the bag and the only thing that can happen, like they play one weird looking move and you just wonder like, uh-oh, do they know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's understandable that you want to be careful. Like that's good, but yeah, at the same time, shouldn't be too difficult.
My read on this Zoom room is that a lot of these players are chatting with their teammate right now, and they're really like having a good like team feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're on like Discord or other voice chats with each other. All right, and Dritman wins by resignation. I'll give him the point over here. Dritman, another player on 2-0 right now. If I've got the standings correct, which I'll flash up now that there's no board to look at. If I've got the standings correct at the moment, which hopefully I do, because otherwise, I mean, it's a pretty janky show. But if I've got the points right, we've got Dritman and Seth, each with 2 points. That means that each of them should have... Oh, right. And Dritman's teammate is Falk with 0.5 point. So Team Coasty has 2.5. And then where Seth has 2 points, Seth's partner is Chess Numbers with 0 points. I put the team members next to each other in this standings page for anybody wondering. So like Rangal plus Lula is a team. Seth plus Chess Numbers is a team. I put the teams in alphabetical order by coach's name. Maybe it would have made more sense to put it in the same order as the players over here, but that's what we got for now. Yeah. All right, Laurent's giving me good choice of initial position. Did you see any of last week's tactics challenge, Matt?
Only a little bit. Who was the eventual victor in that one?
It hasn't been decided yet.
Really?
Yeah, we had the test go really, really long, and the corrections were taking a while. And I'm gonna show everybody the current results / standings of the tactics challenge. We had Blue Jay and Chess Numbers at the end in first and second, and they're supposed to do a final phase for the top 2 scores. Dritman couldn't play because of family that time, so
yeah, I saw that it looked different than like kind of the tactics / puzzle challenge that we did in season 1.
Yeah, I was deliberately throwing wrinkles into this season so that people can't just like assume it'll be a copy of something from before. But in the standings, everyone can see that Blue Jay had like an insane score over the first 2 rounds of 61 points, and Chess Numbers also like an absolutely insane score of 37. I was expecting scores in the like 10 to 20 range, so those two did amazingly. But that challenge was considered far too difficult by everybody. So that's how the tactics challenge went 2 weeks ago. And yeah, we released new power rankings today based on the players' performances there.
Oh, good.
And
Yeah, I think that's a great feature for the show just in general.
Yeah, I'm curious who people think is who other people think like the best players are. And I put Blue Jay as my top pick after seeing his tactics performance, but now he's being replaced by Rangal, so people will have to quickly get a sense of how good they think Eric is. And I think that I'm happy to see Laurent saying that the initial position for the first Endgame challenge was a good choice, because I was definitely feeling bad about my tactics choices.
They were all just too difficult, you felt?
Maybe not every single one, but overall it was too difficult. Everybody said
Did
so.
Did you get them like from a book, or did you just kind of have them?
There were maybe like each test had about 10 positions, and maybe 2 of them came from books, and then 2 or 3 of them maybe came from games, and a lot of them I created myself. But yeah, it was generally considered that the difficulty level was too high. Andras came on at the end to do some commentary with me, or to chat about the event, and I showed him one of the puzzles that was supposed to be like the easiest in one of the tests, and after a couple minutes he's like, just show me the answer. So, so
Wow.
he was joking that next season he'd be on as a student instead of a coach. So that was, yeah. So hopefully we're doing
That's
better
funny.
today. It is time to find out what the second position is. So we'll see the next one here in just a second. We're going to start with Rengao against Bob, Joe Jim. If any players are in the call audio now, you can definitely pop out, but I think everybody's off because we're going to get into the action. Rengao and Bob, Joe, Jim. Here we go. That is the second position. You can get your first look at it if you like, Max, and tell us what you think of this choice here, whether it's simpler or more complicated than the last one.
All right, let me get it open.
Yeah. And I'll just start up for another couple players. Lula, Robs, and Seth. And then we've got Falcon Nargave. Get the next one. All right, all 4 games are started. Rengao needs to make a move, but he's going to get his game aborted. Oh, he
Another
did it.
king and pawn endgame.
He did it. It's another king and pawn ending. It's definitely going to be one where the players are going to want to think a bit on the first move. They're going to be annoyed that they have to make a move after a minute's thought, but they'll do the best they can with that rule. We see every single player thinking with white. What responsible players. They've got their off the board game together. All right, I'm going to restart the Lula Robs game. I'm going to give each player 1 restart for free.
Right, whose game am I not seeing?
This was
this
bound
one.
to happen.
Lula Robs is versus Seth. All right, I'm restarting it. There we go. Okay, did anybody else flag on move 1? No, we had B3 played on several boards, G3 on one board, and Lula Robs on the restart goes with B4 right away. And let's go to you for a second, Max, seeing this position for the first time. What do you think of this choice of
It
position?
reminds me of a position from I can't remember if it was from the European Team Championship or the Grand Swiss, but it was MVL against Shirov.
Uh-huh.
Is
That
this
is
it?
correct. This is MVL versus Shirov. So your first thought is knowing that you've already seen this game, and that gives people a warning about what good players are like. That'll give everybody a scare. Other people are out there memorizing some opening theory, and you remember games played a couple months ago by all the best players in the world.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of an addiction following like top level chess. I just always like to see the games, and I mean, to be honest, I'm more focused on the openings because that just interests me. But yeah, I do see the end games too sometimes.
Yeah. All right. So when you saw this game between Maxime and Alexei, who were both playing quite well at that tournament, did you have any sense like this was an interesting endgame that they had? Did that occur to you when you saw the game that the endgame looked interesting?
Yeah, I think I was like, I saw it towards the end before it was over, and I was trying to figure out if white was winning or if black could hold.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, you know, the outcome was revealed later.
You mean by the result of the game?
Yeah, I saw how it concluded, and then I think I even looked at MVL has like a blog where he will after he has a bunch of tournaments, he like writes little like recaps of his games.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, I thought I had chances, but Shirov like defended really well.
Yeah. Yeah, so looking at the game so far, almost 3 out of 4 players have played a move that I strongly discourage, which is G3. I strongly discourage G3 because that's wasting what's called a reserve tempo. And experienced players in chat, you already know what this is, so don't worry. But for anyone for whom that's a new concept, a reserve tempo is basically a move that you can waste at some point, a neutral move that won't change or hurt your position so that you can make it your opponent's move instead of yours, which is never desirable in the opening, but frequently desirable in the endgame. So if you can get into a good position where you just need the opponent's king to maybe step out of your way one more time for you to get through and win the game, that's when you need a move like G3 available, right? So like I'm on Falk versus Nargave. If we imagine White's king on D5 and Black's king on D7, and you just need the king to step out of your way so you can get into C6 or E6, right? Then that's the time where you're going to wish your pawn were back on G2, right? Because you can play G3, and then the opponent's king has to either go to E7 and let you into C6 and B6 and yum, or they have to go to C7 and let you into E6 and lots of yumming, right? So the total number of reserve tempi you have is actually a very important like bank account in the endgame. It's almost like a material thing, right? It's like, oh, I've got 4 reserve tempi and my opponent's got 2. Like, what do you have in the bank? And so everybody who's played G3, that was a little bit ruining their chances. I think by now it's been played on all 4 boards. G3.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just trying to think what I would do here to begin with.
From the starting position?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out like what a winning scheme for White would look like. Because I imagine like if we trade the pawns, like the A and B pawn, and bring the kings over, like even if Black gets, let's say Black gets their king to D7, White puts their king on D5, and Black plays king E7. Can you make progress there? Because if you play king C6, then Black plays king E6. And I would rather not have my king be stuck on the outside like that.
Right. And then they can hold you off along the D file, never let you over again.
Although if you can somehow outflank them, then maybe it works.
If you had reserve tempi left when you got into that situation, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of these players are thinking that their main plan should be B4, B5, trade a pawn, and then transfer their king along the 5th rank over to attack the king side. That's what Chess Latte is saying he wants to do as well, B4. But I think that's a wrong idea as well, just like G3. I think you don't have enough to win with on only the king side. So if you want to win this endgame as White, you actually have to back up to the 4th rank and then come across with your king. Then try and Zugzwang the opponent once to get back up to the 5th rank, and then a second time to get up to the 6th rank.
Wow, that's it's advanced stuff.
Because you'd want to leave pawns on the other side of the board to have 2 different things you can go attack. But I mean, I don't know if that's right. It is definitely counterintuitive to back up a king, right? Since like the goal of the king and pawn ending is to have your king as far up the board as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if you trade that pawn, I don't see any scenario where White has enough to win just on the king side myself. We'll see. We had only 1 draw out of 8 games in the previous position, and I think that there's a better chance that we get some draws here.
I think
we've got a couple boards.
From the games that I'm seeing, if anyone has chances, it's Dritman.
Okay. Let me refresh the current position for them here. See Dritman against Velcro Dot. So Dritman, this king's going to have to move, and Dritman's king is going to get to F5.
Yeah.
And then he might still have a reserve tempo on H5. So he might actually be able to win with pawns only on one side of the board.
Yeah.
My argument would be that if Black's G pawn were on G6 or G7, that I think the position's drawn. But I haven't calculated super hard.
Yeah, this is one scenario where white backs up, but they still have a chance to win.
Yeah, because they're so far forward, right? Like they still would have the advantage of being on the 5th rank. I mean, on the 4th rank compared to black's 3rd rank if they back up 1 at the beginning. Okay, well, something's happened here. Let's see if Drittman gets anything. G takes h4, was traded by Velcro Dot. The plan is still for Drittman to put his king on f5.
So if she
Then-
goes king f7, can she hold?
Right.
King f7, king f5, king
Normally
g7.
what you play here is king e7, so then on king f5 you can meet them with king f7. But then white's got the reserve tempi. They play h5,
Yeah.
and actually it looks like a done deal for black. The white king comes around.
Yeah, so I'm thinking king f7.
So maybe king f7, naively walking into king f5, and then
But
you
then
want to
king
play
g7.
king g7, and if white
'Cause if white
flanks
plays
you come
King
here.
e6, then you play king g6, and I'm not sure how white makes progress.
Yeah, fantastic.
Because if king e7, then you go back to g7, and you can kind of hold them out.
You can't go back because of h5.
Oh, yeah. then they
But
have
what you
h5.
could play is f5 if the white king goes too far forward, and you can trade it.
Yeah, you play f5.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then
she goes for a
actually-
different approach.
Black wins by accident. But Okay.
Yeah.
h5
No, yeah,
has just been
actually,
played. Oh, what a nice idea. Exclam for Velcro Dot.
h5.
That is a clear drawing idea. Oh, bravo.
Hmm.
Bravo. And I think some people in chat called it, so bravo to all of you as well.
So yeah, so takes king f7. Yeah,
Takes, and then
that's
all
well
she has
played.
to do is huddle on h8.
Well, look at the time difference in Falk against Narg. 6 seconds to 6 or 7 minutes for Narg. Seconds for Falk.
Yeah, and what did Falk just spend 2 minutes playing? G5 sacking a pawn. Desperate and really risky.
Yeah. Should still be a draw.
Are you sure?
But,
My first
takes,
instinct
king-
is somehow he's just going to lose like this.
He could lose. He could lose.
I mean, obviously black has to take it if they really want to
Well,
win. Actually,
if
they
he
could also win with
takes, king
f5.
E-
Who knows?
Let's say takes, king e5, king e7, g4.
Right.
I think
And
it's a draw.
And then black plays king f7, king d6, king f6, king d5. Yeah, okay. You're right. White can just hold it together.
f5 is interesting too.
Yeah, f5, white can go king e5, king
King
e7,
e7.
king f4, king e6, and then g4.
And then trade king e5. Oh, because you'll always be able to put your
You
king
can
in front of it.
always
Yeah.
draw even if you lose your pawn
Yeah.
at this rank.
So
Rangon,
Risky
Bob Joe,
play,
Jim
but-
have just traded the pawn over there.
Look at Seth against Lula. Or Lula against Seth. What's going on here?
Ooh, the white king was trying to get around to win, trying to flank, but black plays that f5 move, right? Sometimes you forget
Yeah,
that your
king
opponent can
looks
make
a
the
little bit
pawn
far
break,
to
right?
me.
And now the black king is getting into great position. Which pawn to
King
take?
take,
Probably the
King
g4.
f6, king f4.
Good thing Seth's got 5 minutes.
Yeah, he should be winning this, but he's going to have to demonstrate a little bit of technique with the queen against the h pawn. Although maybe she can just, or no, he can just take the h5 pawn, right? That's probably just easier. But then king f5.
Yeah.
So
King
yeah, I think you got to
h5,
take on g3.
king f5. Now black's only got one legal move, and then white draws by stalemate.
Yeah,
So it's got to be this pawn.
you got to take.
Yeah, he's got to go for it. And then, of course, white can go king f5, king g6. So,
Yeah. That's so funny. I hadn't even considered that you can just take the pawn, but you shouldn't.
yeah. And now, I mean, it's tricky. You have to calculate that on king f5, actually, your best move is just pushing g4. You can't go back and fight over the h-pawns.
Yeah, you have to go for it. Yeah,
Seth
or
gets
just
the
king
first
f3.
move, right?
I was thinking king f5, king f3, king g6, g4, takes g3, 2. And yeah, you're gonna queen with check, which is a nice.
And actually, instead of stepping out of the way of your h-pawn, your best drawing chance is to run your king to h8 and push the pawn behind your king. Normally in races, you always step out of the way of your pawn, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now king f4, I guess. Probably be the most precise.
Yeah, getting closer in case you need to checkmate with king and queen against king.
King f2. It's gonna make it a little bit harder, but
Actually, can black win here? King h7, g2, h6, queens, king to h8. I think yes. The only move there
you
is
have to play
queen
like
a1
queen a1
check.
check or something,
Yeah.
right?
But it's a
But
close
that's
call.
why it would
We'll
have been
see
such a help to have the king on f4 because then you can quickly bring
such
the
a help,
king in.
yes. So we'll see if Seth can manage this. Oh,
Yeah,
but
now
she
Seth
steps
is
to the
gonna
G
have
file. That makes it a
yeah.
bit easier, although still not over. Still not over. In fact, after queen's check, if she goes to h8, she gets the same position. It's still very challenging. She went the right way. All right, it's on you, Seth. I suspect that queen a1's the only winning move here.
Yes. Yeah, you have to like check from the diagonal and then somehow maneuver the queen around. Oh boy. He still has his work cut out for him.
Yeah. Oh, we've had a game finish. Falk and Nargave drew. So I'll go input that result. Give them their points.
All right, he found queen a1 check, so that's promising.
Oh, bravo, Seth. Bravo, Seth. Matt's going to be happy in chat about that move.
He's still got a lot of checks to deliver, though, and a king to run in.
Yeah.
Does he? I wonder if he knows that technique where you let them queen, but then it's checkmate.
Hopefully he knows to bring the king
Oh,
back.
but queen
towards him.
f6 just wins now.
Yeah, it does. Misses that one. That would be a nice, easy one. I'm going to put it on the board because that's very useful. What Max just told us all, everybody. Queen f6, attacking the pawn and freezing the king. It has to actually step away from its own pawn, and then you clean up. That would have put it away for sure. Seth's still winning, but it's going to be very tricky. We'll see if he gets it. Let me see if any of the other games. Let me check on Renga and
if his king was
Bob
on f4, he would just be winning right away because he would just play king g5.
Just king g5, yeah.
Yeah, and then h7, king g6.
Yeah.
Wow. Unfortunate.
Renga and Bob Joe Jim are fighting out a very, very similar position to the one that Dritman and Velcro Dot had earlier, right? Where the white king tries to get into f5 with pawn h5. But here it looks like... Let's see where they're coming from. King e4, king e7. And white did not play king f5 winning the game? What? Instead, white thought they would finesse with some long-range something or other.
Yeah, king f... Distant opposition, right?
Renga had a chance. Yeah, he prefers the distant opposition to winning the game, which is the true point of the opposition. Is to the distant opposition you convert to the short opposition, which you already had, and then you convert that to winning the game.
Distant opposition. Well, he has a chance again to take it.
Yeah, another chance. Let's go, Renga. Come forward with that king. It's the meaning of life, is to bring your king forward in an endgame.
All right, there we go. And now
the
dagger.
reserve
There
tempo. Oh!
There we go.
The reserve tempo.
Is there any
H5.
chance that Bob Joe Jim can like force a stalemate? Like play king e7, king g6, king e6, king takes, king f7.
The white king has h7, and black doesn't have the room to do it. Yeah. No, there's no way.
Wouldn't?
He's going
Right,
down.
yeah,
Oh,
because they can push the pawn where they can.
Dritman and Velcro Dot drew, as
Yep.
was absolutely correct for their game. Fantastic defense by Velcro Dot with that h5 defense. And Dritman is at 2.5.
Seth is still trying to work it out. I'm not even sure at this point. What does he have to do, actually? Oh, he has to give queen g5 check.
Yeah, you have to give queen g5 check
Yeah, I think
when the
he's
king
got it.
can't
Yeah, now he
get
just can play
stalemated.
queen f8. Yeah. This Queen F8 is just over.
Yeah, Queen F8 is good. And Seth was the only person at the top of the show, folks, when we asked, like, is there anybody who thinks they're, like, relatively good at endgame? Seth was the only person to say, well, sort of maybe. And Seth is on 2-0 to kick things off.
About to be on 3-0.
What's that?
I said about to be on 3-0.
That's right. Looking like it. Queen F8.
Yeah.
Plays another move that Max approves of. And bring the queen to H8, and you got it. Wow. No push-ups for Seth. Matt's got to be happy in chat. And
Rengao is about to clean it up as well.
Let's check on Rengao again. Getting very close, but you can always stalemate at the last moment here.
Yeah, but G7. I guess King G8 is the most resilient try, but...
Yeah. Now you got to play G4 or H7. Use that reserve tempo. Rengao knows what he's doing. He's looking like he knows it's in the bag.
Imagine if the pawn was on G4 and then you queen.
Yeah, if the pawn were on G4 and then you queen. He's not taking any chances.
Just to be safe.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to risk stalemating.
Yeah, no risk stalemating. And now he's just... Oh, it's also an equally fast checkmate, hilariously enough.
Genius.
If that's an endgame puzzle, wow, bravo to him. And we'll give the point there to Rengao over in the table.
I didn't like Queen G6 check by Seth. Could have put his queen on E4. Now he's going to have to walk her all the way into the opposite corner.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all right. It gives us a chance to look at the standings for a moment. Folks, you can assume that Seth is correctly checkmating with king and queen versus king behind the scenes here. Let me show you the current standings here. You can see the standings both individual and for the teams. Like this.
All right, Seth. Well done, buddy.
All right. Seth won it.
Yep.
I'll give him his points. And later, his money.
So he's on 3 out of 3.
He's on 3 out of 3, justifying the bold. It was the most bold of anybody. It wasn't very bold, but he is the last person on 3 out of 3 after Drittman draws. Kind of no fault of Drittman's because Velcro Dot just played really good defense that game. So those two are off to really good starts, clearly. And as far as the teams, it's just as tight as ever. Team Kostia ahead by 1/2 point. After both matches were tied this first round, the players have 3 minutes to discuss with their teammates. And in your opinion, was that game, was that end game just now like harder or easier than the first one that they had?
I feel like this one is harder because you don't have that majority on the queen side that you did in the first one, so it's harder to make like a pass pawn.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about like it's really just about like understanding that concept, like you said, of having that waiting move in the bag and shuffling for king position.
Yeah. MVL himself in his blog said it's like a deceptively tricky endgame, and I didn't give it to them, because like, oh, they have to find the best move. It just has to be something where there's play, chances for them to show what skills they do or don't have, right? Like Rengao finding king f5 and h5. That's an important thing. I mean, whether or not he wins that game has nothing to do with the starting position exactly, but what skills he can display along the way.
So the final score again was split, right? 2-2.
Yeah, both matches 2-2. It is proving really difficult for any team to pull ahead. So,
wow, that's I mean, definitely shows the quality of the positions. It's not easy.
Yeah. And we are halfway through our endgame challenge. At this point, does it look to you like Seth is the individual favorite, or is it too hard to tell, or do you have a different pick?
I mean, yeah, he seems to be in good shape. I mean, granted, he did kind of get some gifts, but the fact that he was able to capitalize on them, yeah, shows that he's ready at any moment.
Yeah. I mean, to win an endgame from white and black, the same position, you either need like a gift or some real skills in the position to be pretty complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both endgames are pretty tricky. You know, I wouldn't expect to play them perfectly with a minute on my clock. I would want a few minutes, just like the players have, to really figure it out. And you know, I'm definitely not expecting perfect play from them. Just trying to give them an opportunity, as I said, to showcase their skills. Let's get ready for the third round. Oh, I almost gave them the third
We're
position.
gonna see some more pieces.
We've got one more round with this, with colors reversed.
Oh, right. We still have this opposite. Yeah, I wonder what takeaways they're discussing amongst themselves.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. And I think one of the things is just like talking about like some skills rather than like no player just solved the position and can just tell the other player like, oh yeah, just move this pawn there or just run your king to this side or something like that. So it's going to be more like, you know, maybe some little like random patterns that they saw, like, oh, if you get this position, you can do this move or something like that.
I guess the takeaways are, keep those reserve tempi at hand. Don't try to get too ambitious with a king because you can go wrong even with white.
And our first game is quite a matchup. Seth with 3-0 against Rangao on 2-1. This is the game that may decide the match between Team Matt and Team Sasha. Let's get their buddies up here as well. Bob, Joe, Jim, and Lula Robs. See how they can acquit themselves on this same position. We see Seth thinking on move 1. So definitely like the team powwow wasn't just like, oh, here's the answer. This is the first thing to do whenever you get started.
Yeah, they're certainly trying to be more careful, recognizing that, yeah, they have to be very precise.
Okay, and starting up the last games, Nargath and Dritzman. 13. All right, let's see what first moves we've got. We've got an H4 move from Belkrodot.
And by Seth.
And Bob Joe Jim, H4. And Seth, H4.
That seems to be the consensus then.
So there was some kind of consensus, even though they were like thinking, they weren't confident in their consensus since they thought on the first move. I think they think that it's really nice to get the pawn to h5 maybe and like freeze black's g-pawn, and then they know that they've got the lead in reserve tempi for later on, right? Like if you get to h5, black's got no moves, all you need is g3 later on to get your king into g6 or something.
Yeah, wow, so 3 h4s.
Yeah.
And Narg is still in the tank.
What will it be, Lars? What will it be?
I think in the NBL Shirov game, I don't think it got much farther than this. I think they agreed to a draw like
pretty quickly
after. Oh, aborted.
All right. We're going to give Nargath his second chance.
Hey, David. Sorry.
Yep. I'm giving Nargath one more chance to move, and there he moves immediately. He doesn't steal an extra minute on his first move, so that's good. Dripman, if you can hear me, make sure to leave the audio.
I'm sorry, I
Hey, Lula.
accidentally messed mine up again.
Did your game get aborted?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. All right, let me
Sorry.
try and restart that one.
thank you.
Okay, so that's going to be Bob Joe Jim and Lula Robs. Okay, so Bob Joe Jim must have started with h4, and then Lula didn't play her first move for black on that one. Okay, so here we've got h4, g6, stopping that h5. So Rangel also thought h5 is like a dangerous thing to let white play.
Did everyone play h4 and move 1? Well, let's see what Ty plays, Bob Joe Jim.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got
But
h4.
I think he had played h4 as well, right?
He had previously, so if he does again, yeah, I mean, everybody's played h4 once at least. We've got Velcro Dot has got the pawn all the way to h5, but then she followed up with the b pawn push. I don't think, and then she used the g3 tempo, but I don't think there's
Yeah,
any
I
real
don't
winning
like
chance
this
here.
Fixing of the pawn, she's gonna get stuck. King d7, king e4, king e6, king e4.
Another game ends.
Although, well,
with Bob
she
Joe
might be
Jim
able to
not
even
wanting
get her
to play.
king to g6, but I don't see how she's gonna make a breakthrough.
Okay, I'm gonna just keep restarting their game for them.
We got Nargis again in the tank. But he's played h4 and g3, so
He's using up all the tempi.
yeah.
He's got no use for them. It's a tempo sale. Every tempo is on sale. All tempi must go.
Wow, none of them even considered like moving the king first,
Yeah.
which is
Now, a couple people did move the king back instead of trading pawns after. So
Oh, did they?
Nargate did after pushing
oh yeah, Narg did.
the
Wow.
tempi.
Yeah, he spent 2 minutes on that, so
And
maybe that's
Seth
his new
did
idea.
as well. Seth, after h4, g6, then brought the king back.
Okay.
And now bringing the king across. So the
Yeah,
games
definitely an interesting dynamic. A lot of, I guess higher risk, higher reward, potentially.
Yeah, the games with the pawns still on the queen side are going to be the more fascinating games. So I think Velcro.Falk is definitely a draw at that point with all the pawns locked up. Falk's been thinking a long time about it. Bob Joe Jim has just played h5 against Lula's g6. We've seen a couple other games go h4, g6, but white didn't play h5 in those games once black had played g6. Bob Joe Jim does it anyway, and it actually looks pretty promising. It looks like a good move for white.
Yeah, it's interesting to compare, whether you make that trade or whether you fix the structure she has.
Yeah. Oh, b4. He's going for the pawn trade again, Max, and I suspect that's wrong. I don't know this stuff with any certainty. I computer checked the tactics for the tactics challenge, but I didn't computer check these end games.
Yeah, I think, again, he's going to get stuck.
Mm-hmm. Even with one reserve tempo, huh? I think so too, but
maybe, yeah.
I feel like just to get the king to f5, he'll have to spend his reserve tempo because the king can come across as far as d5, but then it runs into e5 being covered.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the problem.
And so you have to go back to e4, black comes to e6, then you have to use your reserve tempo just to get your king to f5. The other thing that white can do is flank with king c6, which I think is what Lula did as white against Seth, and then Seth played king e6 and f5, and that's how white lost one of these games.
Yeah, only difference was they had traded one set of kingside pawns, so like the f and the pawn on f6 and g2 were gone, I think, but
Okay.
yeah, otherwise same scenario.
I think they actually had them on the board because then the g2 pawn was on g3. Black king took on f5, went to g4, and had to pick which pawn to capture.
Oh, so they were still there.
So I think if Bob Joe Jim plays king c6, he'll be repeating exactly how Lula lost his teammate Seth, which would mean that Bob didn't that Ty, that's weird to call him by Bob, that Ty didn't really get that memo from Seth, but Lula of course will pounce on it if it comes up because she's going to remember that game.
Well, he decides to go back.
Yeah, so that's where I feel it should be a draw. Let's check out one of the games with pawns on the other side of the board.
But if she goes king e6 and he goes g3,
yeah, then she
what does
should
she
drop
do?
back to e7.
So then king f5, king f7. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be key. Actually, we're at a critical point for Velcro Dot and Falk, so let's see what the deal is. It's white to play. Falk played g6 check. And Velcro Dot took in 2 seconds. That had to be too fast because, I mean, you have to calculate very carefully when this move comes in.
Yeah, but I don't think he needed to give up a pawn. Like his structures.
Oh, he didn't
She
need
has
to,
no
but-
pawn breakthroughs.
But this might actually be a trap. Like, black could actually win, not lose, by giving up the pawn. See, if white backs up, then you take on g6. Then white backs up, you come to g5. White backs up, you take on g4.
Yeah.
Push the h-pawn down and you win.
That would be a crazy plot twist.
So white needs to play very precisely here. I think the right move would be king e4. King takes
What about
g6,
g5
king
by
f4.
white?
g5 by white is an interesting move too. Yeah.
And then g4.
Putting that out there, yeah. Oh, I wonder if that
G5.
move wins for white, g5.
Yeah. F takes, g4.
Yeah.
And then the king has to move. You play king f6. And then you get your king to g6. They can play h5.
Yeah, when they get stalemated by the pawn on g7 on king on g6, they have to
You
play
take with
h5.
the king,
You take, they
They
push the
take
g
on
pawn.
g7. You take on g5, and you have the opposition. I think that's winning.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it bears out one thing I said, which is that some time should have been spent with this g6 move. A lot of time should have been spent. Because
Yeah, that was a very risky play.
g6 was played by Falk in 6 seconds, and it was taken by Velcro Dot in 2 seconds. I mean, she could have played king f4 or king e4, right?
Right.
If taking was bad. Like, if she doesn't see the move g5, she shouldn't take on g6. And I'm
I
gonna
wonder.
eat a
Yeah.
hat if she saw g5 before she took on g6.
I wonder if he played it as like a trick to try to win, or if he thought that like he had to.
After 3.5 minutes of thought, she finds g5. Velcro Dot is
Wow.
showing some really good endgame skills.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And follows it up with
She
g4
just has to.
and
Yeah, he's gonna
Falk
have to
is
go
done.
back. King f6.
that is
Or actually-
vicious.
Yeah, in that position, she can even take after he plays h5. She can even just take with the g pawn, because then she'll like checkmate him before he queens.
That's right. So, like, Max is thinking a position like king g8, king f8, king here, check, here, here, right? So if it were just the g pawn on king, this would be the proper defense against a single pawn, and black would draw like this because it would be stalemate, but black still got this 2-on-1 over here. They have to use the h pawn. This is a reason for white to maybe not even want to take that h pawn, right? And then you take here, here. It's a
You
beautiful
take the
end.
pawn, yeah, it's faster.
Beautiful end.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Crazy
she
stuff.
finds g4, and whew, that is looking good for Team Andros on that board.
Oh, look at Seth's position. Is Seth overextended here?
G4.
He had to play G4.
Black, if he gave way, black would get king G5 and win.
Yeah.
So he plays G4. The danger here is that black can trade and play king E5, right? So it's still dangerous.
Yeah. I mean,
Actually,
it's going to happen.
Still looks lost. Still looks lost. I think once the black king comes to E5, it's just going to eat the H pawn, then go over and eat the B pawn. It's lost. Yeah.
Well, he can try to run his king towards the A pawn, but I think black should be in time. Let's see, takes, king E5, king F3, king F5.
Oh,
king
you're saying
E3,
white
king
could
G5,
abandon the
king
H pawn
G4.
and run towards black's A pawn. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a long walk. Interesting. Oh, it's not that far off from working.
Yeah, it might even work, actually.
Okay, so the tempi are white needs... And folks, instead of saying squares, if you ever want to calculate one of these things, I think the better technique is to just count how many moves each player needs to queen and then compare the numbers. I think that's like easier.
I wonder if it's fast. Well, no, it can't be faster to go after the B pawn for black because white is closer with the H pawn.
This pawn is close to queening. So after king F3, you don't expect king D4, king F4.
No, yeah, I think you have to go king F5.
So let's imagine that white goes to the A pawn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh,
King
they didn't go the
G3?
fastest way. It would have been 10, and black needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
But king
But
G3
white
just
was
kind of
moving
stepping into no
first.
man's land.
But white was moving first. So that would have actually been enough to draw if black went for that straightforward line.
Ooh, imagine if like that one tempo is now going to cost him. Now that would be brutal.
Yeah, 10 versus 9, and it was white's move first. So white would have made it. After king G3, white's lost. Wow. That said, had white gone king F3, there's also this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
He's trying to hold
8.
on to the
And it's
H pawn, but
black's
he's
move
going to lose it.
first.
Oh no, this is going to be slow, painful
So that
death now.
actually king D4 might have been the winning move, not king F5. That would have been a shock. A one game is
Really?
ended. Felgrodot has won.
You think king D4 was winning?
King D4 might have been winning. Yeah. I mean, I would
D4,
need more
king
time
D4.
than they've got to say for sure.
Oh, because you queen and you cover the corner.
You cover the corner square, and the king is coming from
Wow.
H6, so it can't go to like
But they
G8
should
or
be
something.
winning too, I think. But it's still, you have to be precise because you have it's an A pawn that you're dealing with.
Although maybe black could put the king on G7, play H6, H7. I mean, maybe white could, and maybe draw with king G8. Yeah. Okay, so this one here, advancing is a mistake. Oh, as it's played. Basically, what you want to do.
Yeah, right. Because you have to. I studied that similar endgame not so long ago,
Yeah.
where there's like, one side has like two pass pawns and one of them is unopposed like that.
Yeah. It's straight out of the endgame books. The key is
Oh,
you want to take
no.
this pawn and get to B2 before the king gets to C1.
Oh no! If this is a draw now,
Rangos pushing it all the way down the board. And also, I mean, you want to like step away when they can't take your pawn, when they have to take a step towards your pawn. If he plays H2 here, king H1, king F3, he's just making it even faster.
it would be
for sus-king.
interesting. It doesn't work here, but imagine if the pawn was on B3 and A5. You play H2, king H1, king H3. They have to push their pawn, and you push past them and queen.
Yes.
But here it doesn't work because white gets there first.
Yeah. So if he goes king F3, king H2, king E3, king H3, king D3, king G2, king C3, king F2, king E2 there, D1, B2. It looks like he still wins. Show everybody.
So
I think he still
Starting
wins
with
by
which
one
move?
tempo.
King F3?
He can still win by one tempo here as black. But not if he plays H2. And he
no.
played H2. That is just
Oh,
too
no.
much. I mean, just deliver. I mean, that's just throwing. That's just throwing.
Yeah, that's that's an important concept to understand, that you actually want to give the king like the longest possible route.
Right. The
rather
king
than,
could have been
like,
coming from
basically
H6.
help him.
Even from H3, it was like the last point where he wouldn't win. But
Whoa, look at
now he's,
tie against Lula. That's another interesting one.
looks like black is probably winning. They got this F5 move. Look at this.
They
White
decided
was
to not take the pawn on H5. They decided to play King H3 instead, which is interesting.
Oh, yeah. She wants to try and like get in G4 and win the G pawn.
But does it work?
I mean, it seems like the tempi don't quite work after King F3, G4, King F4, and black has to move away.
Yeah, because now G4 is bad. She has to play King H2, but then he can just go back.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
if he goes
it
back,
looks
then
like
there's G4 for black. So King H2 is going to be
yes.
complicated.
Yes.
It's
So
going to
King
lead
H2,
to the same kind of race that she had with Seth, where the king goes to
so
like
King
F5,
H2, King
G6.
G4, King G2, King F5, King
Mhm.
takes King G6. Yeah, same exact race.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. Oh, another
Not
game just ended.
G4.
Nargath and Dritman with a draw. That match, by the way, all draws so far. Team Kostya against Team Andras. Oh, no. Velcro dot, I just put it in the wrong column. Here it is. She won
So
a
many
game.
spoiled results in this final round.
So Team Andras won this round. Let's give Nargath and Dritman the half point.
Velcro out against Falk should have been a draw, but Velcro won that one.
Mm-hmm.
Seth against Seth should have been losing. He might save it. Lula should have been winning.
He saved it. He
She
took the pawn and walked over
threw
this
it.
way finally. He thought down to his last like 15, 20 seconds, but he did it. And it looks like Lula should have won,
Yeah,
but will now
she's gonna lose.
lose it with this G4 idea. We don't know
Because her
for
king
sure
is
what
too
the
far away,
calculation would have
so-
been with King H2, but we know for sure if she just took on H5, you can win this endgame up a pawn.
Yeah,
So,
it's like if you're gonna go for that kind of fancy stuff, then
yeah.
better take it all the way.
Ranga's thinking down to a couple seconds. Can't lose on time because the opponent has no pieces. Now Seth just needs to go back and forth on C1 and C2, and the black king can never get him out of the way of this pawn. And Seth looks confident. He knows this thing. He's playing it quickly now. But there were many, many opportunities to win some of these games, even the ones that are ending in draws. So interesting round today. Or I mean, in the second position. Chess Mankeys, you think Lula's been nervous, huh? I thought she looked really calm in the previous pair of games. Okay, and there we go. Seth and Ranga have drawn. Lula has lost. I'll give a point to Bob Joe Jim. His first. Congratulations, getting back on the board. And
So who's in? Seth is still first, right? 3.5.
Yep.
Miraculously.
Yeah. If Ranga had beaten him, he could have caught up and been tied for first all around.
They would have both been on 3 at that point, right? Wow.
And let's see what this means for the team standings. Have those been shaken up at all here? We had 2 matches won by 2.5 to 1.5 scores this round. So let's see. Nope. I don't see my scores. There they are. All right. So, So Team Matt won their match 2.5, 1.5. And Team Andras won their match 2.5, 1.5. So Team Kostia, which went into this round in the lead with 4.5, with 2.5, now they're at 4, and they're half a point behind Team Andras and Team Matt, with 4.5 out of 8 points each.
Well, at least everyone's on the board.
Everyone's on the board. Things are really close. No perfect scores. You have any sense which team's going to come out ahead?
So Seth is on team Matt, right?
Yeah, Team Matt, along with Chess Numbers, who just won his first game, albeit from a lost position. I mean, he really looked like he was going to lose that game to Lula.
Yeah. And then Team Andras is Narg and Velcro.
Yep.
Okay. So they got yeah. And then Kostia's got Dritman and Falk, right?
Yeah. And I'll say this, Team Andras is paired in the final round with Team Sasha.
I feel like Falk, I'm kind of surprised he's only on 1 point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was number
I
one in
think
the
he's
power
been in some
rankings
very close.
after the draft tournament, and he had a bad showing in the tactics. Now he's having a bad showing in the end game. So people like me who put him first and Kosti who put him first have to be wondering, like, what were we putting him in first place over?
I think he's been very close in this one, though. Like, you know, if you hadn't played that G6 move against Velcro, that would have been a draw, I think. There was one other endgame I remember where he activated his king properly. He still ended up losing that one, I think. So I think he's been doing all right. It's been in some tough positions.
Yeah.
Whew. So we got one final endgame.
One final endgame to see. What are the odds it's going to be a king and pawn ending?
Oh boy.
I got no idea.
Are you choosing them randomly?
But knowing no, I'm kidding. I know the positions. I was going to say, knowing David, I would bet that it's another king and pawn ending once there have been two of them.
Oh boy. Maybe a knight endgame now. That would be fun. I would love to see a knight endgame.
Yeah. All right. I've started Nargath against Renga. Love to hear what you think of this position. Just in terms of, like, do you think that players with white and black will be able to win games from this position? Like, is it rich enough that it can go both ways?
The doubled pawns on the queen side. What is this, a Berlin or something?
It could be. It is the classic pawn structure of various exchange Ruy Lopez's, including the Berlin. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me get the last game started. So what do you think? Are we going to see white and black win games here?
Let's see. Yeah, I think this one, like, with so many pawns, it really could go either way. I like black's chances, though, just off the first glance. So I feel like black's king is closer. Just something about what they got on the queen side looks promising. Of course, white does have an easy route to make a pass pawn with that 45, but black can get their... White has the first move, right? But black can still get their king to the center faster.
Yeah.
Sort of.
All right, you can just comment this for a second. We've got one player who's, like, offline or something. I have to figure out.
All right, so everyone started with king activation so far from what I'm seeing, which is good. You want to just display one of the games, David?
Good idea.
Let's see. Yeah, everyone's first move with white is king e2, which I think was smart. Getting that king into the action. I'm not sure about this h4 move by Narg.
Okay. What would be like just an instinctive other candidate move for you?
I think just king e3. Like,
King
I think
E3.
if you're going to make a pawn move, f4 makes a little bit more sense because you want to keep the king out of e5.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um,
So if we've learned one thing today from Max, it is that in a complicated king and pawn ending, odds are the first thing you want to do is bum rush the center with your king. It's the only piece you have left to develop.
yeah. What's interesting already for Renga, I think c4 looks pretty interesting. Because you're denying the white king access to d3, and you're giving your own king c5 square to try to potentially get to d4.
Mm-hmm.
Not right away, but at some point.
Possible aggressive move for
And
black.
you're getting,
to try.
one step closer to maybe getting a pass pawn on the queen side. Ooh, c4 by Set. Very committal. He's trying to clamp down.
C4 gets played after 2 minutes thought. Renga's on your page.
Battery stream sniping. Nah, I'm just kidding.
I can't restart.
Like c4
and Seth.
Is everyone in a game? Is someone still?
3 of the games are going, and I'm having trouble with one of them.
Yeah, so Seth had an interesting idea to play c4 with white to try to totally box the black king out. But black can play b5 at some moment. So that will be interesting. B5. I would have liked to see b5 maybe. I guess white can play b3. But okay, Renga goes for
shoot.
c5.
I got one of the pairings wrong. The second time around.
And then g4 by Narg. Pawn wall. Now b5. I just somehow like this by black. I feel like those pawns are a nuisance, but maybe it's still equal.
It's very hard for the 3 pawns to get past the 2 here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Nargave makes contact.
But I'm just imagining some scenario where he plays b4 and then like c3. No, c3 wouldn't be good.
Oh, with the idea of c3, b3, c4 at some point. But on c3,
Yeah,
white will
but they
trade
can
once.
just
That's
take-
how they'll
Yeah, take it and like in
keep
b3.
it back.
Well, Narg is going for g5, which is ambitious.
Yeah. It may look like there's not much white can do to make progress here, but I see an idea where you push your pawn to h5, and then you're threatening h6, right? Black plays h6. It's very similar to what we talked about last time, where it was sort of like a you know, black had an extra pawn on the queen side that was just queening, and white was trying to defend with tricks. But you play like h5, h6, then you play e5 check, pawn takes e5, f5, threatening f6. That looks like potentially very difficult for black to deal with.
So it's interesting. We had 2 people play c4 with white.
Oh,
One person played it with black.
right.
And one game where it's still in contention.
C4 definitely doesn't stop black from playing b5. Do those white players intend to answer b5 with b3 and just hold the line? And they think that's the easiest way to stop breakthroughs?
Yeah, maybe.
Because they'd be right. That is a good way to prevent any breakthrough.
Yeah, because the problem is black can never like get their king around because they always have to watch out for the e-pawn.
Yeah, and even if the black king came to c7, white can even play a5 in those positions, and the queen side is unopenable.
Right. Yeah.
But we'll see here if Bob Joe Jim plays b3 confidently or not, or had something else in mind.
Yeah, I think trading would be a mistake.
Yeah, if he just trades twice, he's right back in our first endgame, which we say generally favors the outside pass pawn.
Yeah. I wonder what the outcome is going to be for this one.
Yeah. This round's going to give us an idea of, you know, which team's going to come out ahead.
Like, you would think with the most pawns on the board, there's the most chances, but at the same time, I feel like this one's the most balanced.
Yeah. Some may think that. This one here actually is perhaps
There's a favorite.
Is perhaps the closest to just a stone cold win for white out of all of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I would not have thought that.
Yeah.
I thought the first one was like the most decisive.
Yeah. H4 from Seth. I think what it might come down to for the winning team is going to be this game between Bob, Joe, Jim, and Falk. Bob, Joe, Jim just playing b3. Because Seth has been a rock. And I expect him to continue at this point. The question is, Bob, Joe, Jim lost 3 games and then won 1, right? If he starts to contribute a couple points here and there, or sorry, even 1 point in this last match, that'll probably be enough for Team Matt to win the Endgame challenge. And he's playing Falk, who's been shaky. He's playing Falk, who's been shaky, so.
Seth's game looked interesting. He's pushed a lot of pawns to the 4th rank, and I wonder if he has some kind of a ways to go forward some more. Goes for e5. Huh. I was looking more at f5, but
yeah. F5 was very, very interesting. Black would probably play g5 and hope that the entire board is locked, but then white can play what?
Maybe e5 at some moment.
Yeah.
But then king f6, b3, a5, right? So.
And white's out of moves. And even though they've got the protected passer, it looks like they can't get any further with this one. That looks like a dead draw. So
yeah, but if they
f5, g5. Is there a moment there where white could break through with e5? Tough question.
Well, he goes for e5 directly, which also, I mean, is reasonable because if they trade, okay, Redman goes for f5. I was going to say, if they traded king e6, king e4,
yeah,
then I think black might be lost. So maybe f5 had to be
black
played.
can just back up. What's white going to do?
Well, I was thinking, if they just back up right away, well, maybe h5.
Right. Only way to get a square to penetrate. If you can't penetrate, it's a dead draw.
Yeah, h5 because trade, king e6, king f4. right? And white is eventually going to get into f5.
That
And I
was winning.
don't think, I mean, black could play b5, right? But white just plays b3. So
Yeah. Oh, we've got a result already. That was
Really?
quick. I wasn't watching it. It's the pawn breakthrough we talked about.
Ooh,
Nargave, his
wow,
third game
F6.
decided this way. So, pawn takes on g5. That's a risky choice by black. And then
Wow.
f5 check, king here, and f6. Another one.
Very nice.
Big point for Team Andras in the running for first place here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what he could have done differently with black. If he goes back to f7, is that just lost?
I think so, because white can play king f4 and then e5,
Yeah,
e6, and eventually
king.
bring the white king to g6. So I think that trading on g5 should lose for black.
Yeah,
if
he
there's
should've just
any
tried to hold
defense,
that.
it's somehow holding on here
Yeah.
by not doing anything. Not
Yeah, no,
touching anything more.
I didn't realize at first how tough it'd be for black because of the doubled pawns, but yeah.
Okay, so that's one game down. And, oh, we've got another game down. A draw agreed between Velcro Dot and Lula Robs. Very, very similar position to the one in which Seth managed to play e5 at some point, right? But they had been moving back and forth here, not able to see a way through for their kings. Do you think that in this position there was anything for Velcro Dot to try, or does Lula have a better defensive setup than Dritman had?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe no, I'm not. I was just thinking maybe c4 to kind of fix the queen side and try to. I think h5 maybe was too hasty to lock that in place, because then you can't really go for g5 later.
Right, maybe that didn't need to be played. Or if you do it with your pawn on g2, so you're like nailing down extra reserve tempi for when you need them, right? But
yeah,
if you nail down g6 but take away your ability to open things up. But I think the c4 move might still have some ideas for white. c4, then black can either push or trade, but I'm just going to push for argument's sake. And now for white, I'll try the move e5, the same move that Seth played. Takes on e5, f5 check, king e7. Oh, that's a defense. And now if white ever goes to e4, black has king f6. So black's okay there.
I was just thinking if in the final position, how crazy would it be for to play c4 by black? Like, does white take that, or they go king c2?
Sorry, at which point?
In the final position,
Yeah.
after king d3 to play c4 check.
Oh, to try a breakthrough for black. And then takes on c4, you're going to take on a4. The white king's going to run towards the corner.
And then if king c2, then maybe king d6, king c5.
Oh, if black ever goes to c5 with the king, then e5 is a nice winning move. The black king gets frozen by the c4 pawn and the e5 pawn. You don't push the e pawn, you just leave it there freezing.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Wow, Dritman thought for a while after e5. No, not after e5. After, wait, what move did they spend a lot of time on? Or maybe that was just a mistake on my end.
Oh, wait.
I think I
need to refresh their actual position, right? Okay, here we go. He played f5. h5 from Seth was crazy. Oh, dramatic.
Whoa. We have a clash of two pass pawns.
Yeah. And here, Seth's down to 20 seconds. He's wondering if he can play king e5, let the g pawn go, and checkmate the king with two pawns. He can't. Oh, he goes for it. Oh, my God.
He's going big or he's going home, but looks like most likely he's going home.
It's dramatic.
King E5, G3, F6, King E8, King D6, G2, F7.
Yeah, if black defends
it's
is
still
wrong, it
not
can work
over.
out, but we'll see. We'll see if he does. The key thing for black is after you step back, if white plays E7 or F7, you need to come up again, not keep pushing your pawn.
But I'm thinking if King E8, King D6,
Okay. King
G2,
E8, King
F7,
D6, G2, F7.
King F8, King D7.
Takes, check. Here. And you get a queen and pawn ending, huh?
Yeah, and who knows what happens there.
Exactly. Who knows? Black's got the extra H pawn at the moment, but the white
I mean,
king's kind of
Seth
behind
likes
the
his
pawns.
chances as supposedly the best endgame player.
Yeah, I suppose he's got his chances. 20 seconds against a minute. Slight disadvantage there for
Where
calculating
could
these key
Black put their king?
moments. Another game has just ended.
Probably not D8.
No.
It goes E8.
Yeah.
I don't think was there a big difference between F7 and E8 and F8? I'm not sure. Wait a minute, G2, E7.
G2 F7 is the move you said.
Oh no, yeah, no, you can't play E7 because
Yeah,
black queens
can't play
before. I was thinking if white had one extra tempo, they would checkmate, but yeah, it doesn't work here. Yeah, so F7, King F8, King D7.
Whew, this one's intense.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, black is going to be up like a pawn in the starting position, or up 2 pawns, but then white can start collecting pawns with the queen.
Yeah, and the white king is
The
in
queen
good
is just gonna be
position to like
going
eat all
ham.
the pawns, right? And the black king's going to be on the king side.
Yeah. Okay, King B7.
Wow, fancy play by Seth. Now I will say he could have won this game without anything fancy. Like he wants King E5, but that's not going to happen. This is just going to chase the black king towards a better square. Okay, he keeps the king away from D4. That's a very, very good move.
Yeah.
If he chased the black king to D4, then
maybe
been in big trouble.
could he get away with just taking the pawn on H5, like instead of Queen F8?
From the very starting position, yeah, it was definitely an option.
I guess Queen D4 check, King takes C6, Queen takes C4. It's a little bit unclear.
Yeah.
I mean, he's forcing Driven.
It looks like he can always still get it because Queen F7, the king can never go defend the pawn without getting checked on the G file. So he can always get back to that position if he wants it.
Driven's like walking through a minefield here.
Yeah.
Trying not
Let's
to
see
get
his
a hit with
face
a
as he
check.
walks through a minefield. How's he enjoying it? He's working hard for somebody who's not a huge lover of endgames, but doing good work here.
Yeah, 5 we have. Seth is determined to give checks. Is it just going to be a repetition or?
Now Seth's up 20 seconds. I say play, Seth, play.
Ooh, King E4 now you can take on C6 with check.
Take
Ooh,
on
that's a
check.
mistake.
But that does let the king over to D4. Okay, and Seth's king crosses and
But
leaves
still,
D4 for the
okay,
queen.
I think Queen F3 now maybe he has to go for.
Yeah. Queen D5, Queen D4 would be a loss. That's possible.
But Queen F3, King takes C4, Queen takes H5. There's also Queen G7 check, and then you win the D2 pawn.
Bob, Joe, Jim, and Falk, chess numbers, and Falk drew.
Oh, they drew that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like if this one is the easiest to win, but it's also the most complicated. Oh no, Queen D5, Queen D4 happened. Is that just over? Looks like. Now just H4, right? Yeah.
And that
Good
came in.
stuff.
The Queen D5, Queen D4 mistake. Yikes. And Dritman takes the game.
With
Whew.
a big one.
Breathes a sigh of relief there. That was a surprise. I was thinking that Team Matt was going to look good this round. But Team Kostya finds some life, takes a 1.5 point lead. A 1.5 2-1 lead in this round. And Dritman has the top score of anybody now. He just
Wow.
beat the previous leader, Seth, and he is in sole first place at this point in the endgame competition.
Yeah, a lot of results here are just determined by someone overextending. And I mean, end games are the easiest phase to do that. So really got to be careful.
All right, so we're gonna give them another 2.5 minutes to talk it over before we get into the final round of this endgame challenge. Let me show you all the scores. I'm going to risk showing you the scores. I know every time I show the scores, I forget to show the board again afterwards, but we'll take that risk. Team Andras with 1.5 points in that round. They are now 0.5 point of Team Kostya bouncing back up. Wow. And how did White do that round? 2-2. Has there been any position that White's completely dominated? Not really.
Wow, that's great. Every round starts with like a evenly split,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, every round has started 2-2.
I mean, this one was close to being in at least like, you know, like the Seth game, we could argue that White shouldn't have lost that one, but
that's true. I mean, Seth should have been winning, and a game that we missed an important phase of, Bob Joe Jim versus Falk, I also thought was good for White. But of course, I think that all of these ones start with White being good.
yeah, at least having a practical advantage.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, Dritman making up for time after missing the previous challenge. He would have been considered more of a favorite in the previous challenge, I think. He's more known as like a very, very deep calculator who, well, I'm not going to give a full profile on him since the players will watch the VOD, and that's up to them and their coaches to figure out. Anyway, Dritman, let's just say, having a great showing here right now. As we see the players in conversation with each other, Falk laughing at what Dritman has to say. Dritman's got to cheer Falk up if he wants them to win this, and it looks like he's doing that successfully. Does anybody's body language tell you that they're going to do well in the last round? What do you think here on these competitors?
I don't know. Oh, look, they're busy discussing strategy. I mean, this is the most complicated position, I think, of the ones we've seen, so a lot of strategizing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And rushing off.
What would you say, David, or like the advice you would give for this particular end game?
Good question. Good question. And that'll help me bring the board back up right now and go back to the starting position here for a second. So first of all, bum rush with the king.
Yeah,
But
we know king activity, right? Always important.
I tried playing this out against myself really quickly, like blitz speed, right? Bullet speed, like once or twice, just to check like how I felt about the position. And the plan that I won with for White was to bring the White king to f4. Everybody else has put a pawn on f4 that we've seen so far, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
They try and like get the pawns forward, gain space with the pawns. Normally in chess, you put your pawns in front of your pieces to gain territory, to safely bring the pieces up.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of them like to make a connect 4 pawn wall.
Yeah, but I would start
colors.
king e2, king c6, king e3, king d6, king f4, and now I don't think this king can ever get chased back by black. And with the king on f4, I would go for g4, h4, g5, pressuring the f6 pawn. If I can get black to play fg5, hg5, then I can move my king out of the way and roll the e and f pawns, winning. If black,
Because I guess And would you say it's important to get c4 in early to stop black from
No, I
advancing
don't
on the
think it
king
even
side?
matters.
You think just let them
Run the
try?
king to f4, deal with the king side first, and then if you need to, you can play b3 and or c4 at some point to avoid breakthroughs.
Mhm.
Once your pawn's on g5, you're also threatening to bring your king to f5. So you can always, at some point when you've got the tempi in your favor, you can play gf, gf, play a waiting move, their king backs up, you come to f5, and you're winning.
Mhm.
I think this one, I don't know. Maybe it's because I only played it twice against the same idiot, but I think that white can probably just win this one. So that would be my tip to any teammates of mine who are playing white. I'd be like, this is your chance.
Just win.
Bring the king to f4 and then win it. And I guess I should give some advice for black too in the face of that plan.
Just thinking, like, is there anything that black can really do on the queen side that would worry white?
I mean, I suppose if white's bringing the king straight to f4, you could maybe play b5 with your king still on c6. And it would threaten to at least open that board up. Oh, I'm supposed to start the next round, aren't I? We've given too much advice.
Yeah. Let's get them going.
Let's get it going. We're not supposed to let them rest too much. I was enjoying watching them talk to each other. It was very entertaining to see the little faces. All right, but let's get it going. Let's get the right matches off here. Lula, Robs with white against Nargave. And Renga with white against Velcrodot. Which means that, like, if they can really figure it out, then I'm going to favor the teams that have white in the last round, right? Lula, Robs, and Renga both have white here, so they could really make a comeback against Team Andras. But it depends. So far, there hasn't been a huge score ever where you're just like, oh yeah, this team's got white, so then they're taking it. Okay, Dripman versus Bob Joe Jim. Dripman 13.
Yeah, so far from what I'm seeing, they're really prioritizing king activity, which is good.
Yeah.
Rengar goes for an early h4 on move 2. Whereas Lula is going for king e3.
Yeah. So actually, I would say that potentially Team Matt is in danger in this round. I mean, I thought going into this round, like maybe they were the favorite team, right? But they lost the first round with white, and now they've got 2 blacks. And yeah, it could be a very dangerous moment for Bob Joe Jim and Seth Lichtenstein.
Are Falk and wait, who's on Falk's team?
Falk has Dripman on his team. They've got white.
And they're both playing white this round, right?
Yeah.
And they both played c4.
They both started with c4. So obviously they've been talking like they were supposed to.
They're in agreement, so that's important. Ooh, Narg played something that no one's played yet, which is g5.
Yeah. G5. Well, you know what I would do for white? F4. I'm not going to let myself get blockaded here. I'm going to try and play F4 and move my king forward.
Yeah, you can't allow king e5 now.
After king e5, I think white might be lost.
Yeah, that looks bad.
Certainly critical condition.
Yeah, none of them really considered playing king f4 and then h4.
Let's see. We've got 2 players who wanted to play c4 from one team. The other team played king e2, king c6, h4 on one board, and king e2, king c6, king e3 on the other board. So they didn't have a consistent set of moves they wanted to play, Rangao and Lula. They didn't discuss, like, in the starting position, play this move, right? Because their opponents both played king c6, which was played in all previous games last round as well, so they could see that coming, and they did not employ the same strategy there.
Dripman versus Ty is being fought heavily on the queen side. c6 on move 1. How about that?
Wow. King e2, b5. And look at a5 from Dritman. He knew. He knew that b3, king b6 to a5 was going to be absolutely not what he wanted. So Bob Joe Jim, the first person to try and get really frisky for black, with c6 instead of king c6. But now he's locked in, and Dritman's saying, like, yeah, you know, you can play b takes c4. You can take my pawn. I don't care. You're not getting anywhere.
He's baiting his opponent to give himself tripled pawns.
Now we'll see where Dritman takes it from here. But also I noticed, like, you know, he had 750 of his 8 minutes left after a couple, you know, tricky moves there. Because I don't know if he could have predicted c6 from Bob Joe Jim, but he seemed very confident about how to handle it. Now he plays f4. So he was probably afraid
it's
of
interesting with like
king e3,
time management in such situations, because I mean there's still a lot to think about, even being so late in the game.
Nargave looks upset. What did he do? What went wrong? So Lula let him get the king to e5. Plays c4. They're jockeying over Tempe. She doesn't want to let the black king into f4.
Maybe he doesn't like that she has b4 here.
Maybe he didn't see that when he pushed. So that would throw
b4
the tempo back at
h6
him.
and she's kind of stuck.
Yeah. Also on b4, black can just play king d6 and c5. Basically just winning for black.
But b4, king d6, king d4?
Oh, king d4. Sorry. Let's see. That's more complicated than I intended.
Then I guess maybe
Takes
c5 takes king
here.
c6. But then e5.
Takes king
But then
takes,
trade and b4 for
and then
black.
just b4. Black seems to win.
Yeah, this is like a nice setup for black here with the pawns. Yeah, she really needed to play f4, right? After g5, just to not allow the king to e5.
Yeah, absolutely required. You can't let the opponent get such a beautiful spot for the king. And in general, just as we talked about how you want to rush your own king up the board, you don't want to let the other person's king rush up the board.
Well, look, Renga has got his king to f4. He's following your strategy.
Yeah. There is still something of a defense for Lula, which is to play f4 check, right? And sack the pawn to not let the opponent's king in. She backs up here, planning to then defend at f2. But
Yeah, that
Nargave
would've been interesting.
is rich on extra tempi here, right? c5 and h6, both waiting in the bank to be spent after king f2.
Yeah,
And
f4 for her would have been interesting.
Play
Definitely.
c5 immediately. I can't believe that Nargave 7 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock. He knows this one.
Yeah, this is looking rough.
Yeah. So, folks,
Renga
if you ever
went
get...
for h5.
Sorry, say that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to just
No,
say...
I'm just observing. Yeah.
You're observing a different one? All right. I'm going to say,
Yeah,
folks,
no,
if
I'm
you're
just
ever backed
observing
into this
Renga's.
corner that Lula was in, throw in this move f4 check, pawn takes, king here. I think that's one of the most simple patterns in king and pawn endings that most people aren't aware of. Like, more than 50% of people don't know that if you're stuck, you can just sack the pawn with check and then step in front of it, and half the time your opponent has to back up and you take your pawn back. And here it would look like this, maybe c5, h4, h6, h5, right?
Yeah.
And
who knows? Maybe white even has the upper hand.
Who knows? Yeah, white might even be able to win. There's another weird thing you can do as white. So let's say black tries to time it so their king stops you from playing king e5. What breakthrough can you do here as white? I don't think it works here, but sometimes you just play e5, pawn takes, king there. You lose the pawn in the middle on purpose because you always have g5, h6. So it's like you have an outside passer.
I think Dritman's asking a question. Is he tied for first? Or is he leading?
Dritman is half-point lead.
So he just went Yeah, he's definitely he's being solid so far. Could still try to make a push.
I mean, he's got white in a good position, but I guess he's wondering, like,
Yeah.
at some point, should he use the kind of thing I was talking about? E5 check, pawn takes F5, when you can then put the white king on E4.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it's interesting. This G5, G4 thing seems to have taken away a lot of his space. He's going to see how black reacts to H3. Black's probably going to want to just leave that. And then, what opportunities does he have to try to win this position? It's looking like somehow black is holding him off.
Hmm. On a different note, I think Renga is winning, but I'm not sure he's seeing the plan yet.
Okay, let's see that. He's got a
Because
pass
that
pawn on
outside
H5.
H pawn is extremely strong.
Right.
But I think he should have, instead of getting his king to C4,
Mm-hmm.
he should have. I think what he needs to do is, at some moment, play E5.
Yeah, maybe exactly that moment. E5. If the king ever takes, then H6 queens.
And if pawn takes, you play King E4.
If pawn takes, king E4.
And eventually,
King
the king
F6.
is
You
like,
just pretend like you're not down a pawn on the queen side, like it's all just a wash. Now you throw away your H pawn. King E5, king here, king here. And eventually you collect their G pawn. You play B3 or C4 as necessary to keep this position from ever opening up.
yeah. He could still come back around to it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not sure what King C4. I mean, is he trying to play C3 B4?
Seems like it. I suppose that could win too. You play C3, B4, trade a lot of pawns, then play A5, trade another pawn, and eventually take black's last queenside pawn with your king.
Yeah, black king is just so stuck, right? They can never play King E5.
Yeah. Black's at the end of the leash right now of the H pawn. The king can't go to D6 or E5. Ever.
That's tough.
It looks very good for Rengar right now.
Wow, look at this domination by Narg. He didn't even go for Lula's like H pawn.
Mm-hmm.
He went all the way around for her A pawn.
That's weird because that gives her chances to break through.
Yeah, I'm
on the
not
other
sure
side,
it's-
she's going to try and take that chance right now. He's playing fast, and he's playing H6 on the weak side of the board instead of racing with King B5.
Yeah, I thought King G3 and take H3 was pretty clean. Maybe he was worried that he was going to get trapped in the corner.
Yeah. Well, it's Lula's low on time, but she's going straight in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, what else is she going to do, right? It's going to be
Running at
problematic for him.
Yeah.
Because now if King takes A5, they trade E5, King B6, King F3, King T6, King E4.
Well, if King takes A5, as in a lot of these tactical situations, you don't want to just trade and give up the tension. You want to play E5 there.
Oh, you play E5, so if they take on F4, you're gonna be left with the passed G pawn.
If they take on E5, you take FG, and the G pawn is just gone way out of the box. If they take on F4, you take with your king, and again, you're forcing away their F pawn, and you get this faraway pawn to win with. Falk and Seth have just drawn their game, so Falk couldn't find any way through in this position. He's got the same position as Dritman. Like, I recognize this position. They played the same this round.
The position of mutual Zugzwang.
Falk gets to 2 and Seth gets to 4, and let's check on Dritman as far as who's going to get that second seed in the final tournament. It looks pretty unlosable for Dritman, right? So he should be sitting pretty to win the Endgame challenge today. As you know, once Falk, didn't blow it against Seth, that put Dritman in very, very good position. And he's going for the win now. F5 and King F4. Did this king have to drop back? It did not. I was assuming last time we were here that Bob Joe Jim's defense would be King D6, King E6, King D6, King E6.
Yeah.
But
That's
he may have feared
strange.
e5 takes and f5, huh? Then king e7, and if king e4, he's got king f6, and he's fine.
Yeah, because now the king just has a clear path to the basket.
Yeah. So I think that may have provided a defense if he just sat there.
Although
like
he's
that.
gonna try to get his king in via e5, d4, but I don't think it'll work because white can break with e5.
So chat, what should white do? This should be automatic after 3 hours of these positions.
Ah, yes.
What should white do now, chat, to not allow any counterplay? What's an automatic win? It's a one-move calculation. Then you don't need to look 3 or 4 or 5 moves ahead. Like king g4, king e5, king f3, king d4, you better have calculated. He didn't do it.
Looks like Lula misplayed.
He didn't do it. Oh, that's nice. Lula got f5 and e5. Oh, wait, but she played f5 before e5,
instead of e5.
then went for the breakthrough.
But the king came back. And that passed a pawn is going to decide
she
things.
Plays e6. Is her king in the box? It's not, right? So the a pawn would just queen. She doesn't have an option to set up the protected passer.
Yeah, her king is completely locked out. Okay. Yeah, e5 would have been interesting.
Chess Latte got the answer. Yes, Rosenberg says king g4 or e5. No, I didn't say what are the candidate moves. I said what's the correct move that wins for sure. The correct move is e5 check. Pawn takes e5, king e4. Black's got literally no moves. You just know you're going to collect this, collect the g pawn, etc. So clearly Drittman didn't see e5 here, or he would have played it. It's just the easiest possible way to clean up this game. And hopefully after today, at least all the players will know the idea of like check, sacking a pawn, and then stand in front of it and recapture it later. That's just like maybe the best thing to know about king and pawn endings as far as the tactics. Just that little one. Okay, so here we're at Bob Joe Jim playing king to d4. And Drittman should probably play g4 and then g5 as the king goes to c3. King c3, g5, king b3, gf, king moves f7, b3, f8, b2. I guess he still wins. A game just ended.
Yeah, it's still a little bit messy, right? Because if he can pick off b3,
Nargate
have some pawns over there.
Gets to 4 points as well, tied with Drittman and Seth. So if Drittman loses this somehow, everyone will be tied at 4 here. Played g5. F takes g5 gives a full extra tempo to white, by the way, in the race. For any fans of racing out there, after g5 here, white's got a pawn on the 5th rank. You can keep going with what you're doing. But if you take, white's got a pawn on the 6th rank before you keep doing what you're doing. So you're giving a full tempo unless this
maybe
G
he wants
pawn
to just take on c4 and have a bunch of connected pass pawns, but yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Too slow, unfortunately. I mean, he could probably even just take on c5.
Sack the queen for the b pawn and run the e pawn.
Yeah.
Do it all over again.
Or just push the e pawn.
Or just start pushing the e pawn and then on b2 play like queen b8 because you don't really need the c pawn for anything. If you didn't have extra pawns on the board, the winning move after b2 would be queen f2, which is like not super easy. Now queen a4 check would be a nice move for Drittman to find. Right. I think he's got the tournament in his hands. He's got the tournament in his hands.
Drittman would be the winner, right?
Yeah. Even if he draws this, he'll be the winner. So he would need a total collapse here. On the other board, Rangau and Velcro Dot, it looks like white is winning a game. Did anyone ever just win like there was no chance for the opponent? Rangel played a big plan this game, right? I mean, he brought the king all the way over to the queen side once he had the protected passer, opened the queen side where he was down a pawn to win everything there, then brought his king to the king side.
Yeah, I'd say his win was maybe the most one-sided because he kind of had, I think he had control like pretty much from start to finish.
Oh my goodness, how does Bob Joe Jim have a pass pawn again? And why isn't he pushing it?
Wait, what?
If he played c4 here, I would still be worried for Dritman.
Yeah.
But he played king b5, and I don't know.
Just got to bring the king in.
Pretty easy to win. There comes the king. That's it. That's it. He would need
so the
to...
score is still 1.5, 1.5 right now. I mean, white should win this one, but it was still very close.
Right, so Rangel just won his game. So that
What's
match
like the
was
most
1-1.
decisive round we've had? Have we even had a round that's been 3-1?
We've had one round on round 4 where white
3-1?
scored 3-1 in the Vachier-Lagrave endgame.
Uh-huh. Still, I mean...
This one here, if
like
Dritman wins, it'll be 2.5
decisive.
for white.
All right, king a3, queen b3.
Move away.
Should wrap things up.
Yeah. And there you have it. The last one playing, Dritman scores a point, gets to 5. We'll go to all cams. We will show the results. Whoops. We will show the results for a moment. The players may rejoin us in chat for a minute. And oh my gosh, it's a tie between the two teams.
Oh, wow.
We'll make them play another endgame as a tiebreaker. Just kidding. Just kidding. We'll let them share the prize money.
Team?
We'll let them share the prize money.
It's just the decisive, like, player is the most important, right?
I'm not going to use any tiebreaker. Yeah, I'm just going to divide the money between the two teams. So first place being 300 and second place 200. I'll put 250 in each team's account. In fact, we can put the prize money over here. Why not? Prize.
So Dritman was first and Nard was second, looks like.
There's a multiple way tie for second.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Seth. I missed Seth is also on 4.
Nargaf and Seth. Yeah. All right.
Stuff.
So, if the players can hear us again, feel free to join the conversation for a minute, if you like. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to Dritman for a couple minutes. We'll hopefully be feeling well right there.
Hello.
Hello.
Seth.
Hey, good games, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, good game.
Definitely good games.
Good games.
Yeah. So, we gave you all pawn endgames. Raise your hand if you thought that the selection of endgames was great. Okay, 1.5. And raise your hand if you thought the selection of endgames was terrible.
Is this a trick question?
No, I'm just curious what you guys thought of the positions. Like, did they feel like sometimes when you practice endgames, you might think the position's not that interesting, or like one side's completely winning, or you might think it was just drawn and there was nothing to do for either side. So I'm just curious. There's no right or wrong answer.
I thought all the positions felt fairly balanced, and it just depended on the plan that you picked to proceed with and how you reacted to your opponent. I don't know. I felt like it was pretty balanced overall.
I thought the first one, I can't remember which one of the sides I thought was definitely better.
Yeah, one of the ones I thought was winning
White.
for white. Yeah.
White, I
Right.
thought was winning the first one, and the last one I thought.
And
was
I'm not,
pretty good
yeah,
for
I don't
white,
think there was
so.
a position that I thought was winning for black.
That's right. All the positions had some advantage for white, but they're positions that there's like, in my opinion, like a lot of room to like play still, and hard to really. I mean, you would have to be better than me to sort of just confidently be like, I know that white's winning, or I know that black can hold a draw. You know, it's sort of be tricky to play.
It was only the one where the pawn was the H pawn that I knew you could draw it. All the because like if you just put your king on the corner, there's nothing you can do about it. So it was the only one that I knew that could be drawn. All the other ones, I was like, I think white. I thought white was winning for all of the other ones.
Okay.
But I think it's the question is like how to find it, right?
Yeah. For example, for the last one, I think that there's a good plan for white, which is to bring the king to f4. And nobody tried that today. Everybody tried putting their pawn on f4 and kind of, or almost everybody tried pushing all their pawns, like e4, f4, g4, h4.
Rengo did.
Yeah, he did in the last one. I think he got his king
Yeah,
up.
the game that I just played against him, he put his king there. And that like
Yeah, that
I
was
didn't
the
think about
slow plan that we
that
saw.
because I was thinking of I everyone I'm sure probably like did the same thing as me. You did the pawn wall,
Yeah.
but he put his king there.
Oh, you're right. One person did. And we did say it was one of the most convincing games that we'd seen, that he seemed to have the advantage.
Can't black
really pushed through there?
I guess he just came straight to f4. Like, couldn't black stop him?
Yeah, maybe e5.
If black wanted to stop white, they would have to, on their own, play g5 really early, which gives white other ways to try and open up the king side. So it's an interesting question, but I thought the plan of bringing the king to f4 was very strong. Okay, well, extra prize to Renga for thinking of that. Did anyone else think of that and I just didn't notice it? Because I just saw like pawn walls mostly.
I didn't think of that in front of the pawn. My plan when I had white was f4 to f5 and then king f4, but I ran into g5 and my plan never got off the ground. So somewhere I thought of a version of it, but it didn't make it anywhere near the board.
Yeah.
I think it would have.
The question was, what endgame did you guys think was like the hardest to kind of work out? Like what to do? Is it this last one?
I think the last one for me.
Yeah, because that's the most complicated. So
I guess I have a weird take where to me the second was the hardest, because I guess the last one I knew was ambiguous and like you just got to kind of play chess and try to exploit mistakes. But I had trouble coming up with an actual plan for the second one.
Yeah,
the second one was hardest as well.
The second one is the only one I didn't create. That one comes straight from a game between Maxime Vacher-Lagrave and Alexei Shirov. And Lagrave drew the game with Shirov and in his blog said, this endgame is deceptively complicated and I think I had chances to try and win it, but like it's like really hard to figure out. So obviously, I wasn't giving this to you like with the tactics challenge, like expecting like all correct moves, right? I was just trying to give you guys somewhere where you could, you know, play moves against each other and see what you all came up with. And I think one thing that you'll find if you review your games, this will hold for any of you, is you'll find there are a lot of like interesting tactics in a lot of these games, like little trick moves that really had a big effect on the games. Like, for example, I think there was a game where Katrina was white and Falk was black, maybe, where Falk uses like a g6 pawn sack.
I thought it was a draw.
And it looks like she's stuck, but then she came up with this g5 move afterwards, running him out of moves. And that g5 move straight into both his pawns. What a move!
Wait, I cheat. I didn't cheat a little bit, but yesterday during my coaching, Andres told me specifically never to count. He said, like, it doesn't matter if they promote if you're faster. So I thought that I was like, it's okay, we can just push it. But I actually almost offered him a draw.
Yeah. Well, that move was just like a fantastic tactical move. And I know some of you will probably check on the VOD at some point. And I think one thing you'll see is just like some really cool tactics, like all over the place in these end games. So,
my final question would be like, what do you guys think are the biggest takeaways in terms of like what you're going to be looking for in King upon end games in the future?
I guess just bringing your king in.
Okay.
That's big.
I don't know. I found restraint worked really well in a lot of the positions, like just sort of timing the pawn thrusts appropriately. And then the other thing is just like time usage. So my second game against Seth, I'm like 100% sure I was crushing him, and like I just like quickly moved and I blundered away the promotion. So it's just sort of using your time and actually thinking about the position, whereas I was just sort of on autopilot at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought
Yeah,
I was winning
like,
my
wait,
first game
what?
against you and went into autopilot, moved fast, and all of a sudden you were winning instead.
I think one thing I'm gonna look for is, like, I think it's, at least for me, it's natural to look for pawn breaks, but sometimes a pawn move that actually fixes the pawn structure in an advantageous way is something that I don't look for enough for me or my opponent.
Yeah. And
I
Funk,
think
I have a question for you. Dritman eventually came out on top in the tournament. During those little 2-minute breaks or 3-minute breaks, did he ever tell you something that you found useful? Did he ever give you like a boost as a teammate?
I mean, we talked about the games and the strategies we might have, so
Yeah.
it worked out better for him. But yeah,
Say yes.
It's like we talked. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we did. It was helpful, I guess.
Dylan used the exact same strategy that I used against Falk against me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In the last game, Falk and I were discussing what to do if black push it, because we had black in the first game, but this idea of b5 as black to try to make a pawn break, but the idea that you just play a5 as white. And
Which you played so fast in that last round.
Yeah,
And
we
were
had looked at like
was he
3
prepared
variations
for it?
there.
Wow.
Yeah, we had looked at a lot out of there. So I was like, oh, this is great.
I assume that was between round prep when they just hammered that when Fox just played it immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is their plan. But I didn't buy it. I thought the king was more important to bring.
I mean, I didn't win, so maybe it was.
I don't. But who knows? Yeah, that one was hard.
I think one thing that surprised me was how easy it is sometimes to set up a draw, right, with like pawn blockades.
Yeah,
like it really surprised me. Like my last few games, I just forced a draw by setting up a pawn blockade.
So now that you've played this tournament, is there anybody who feels like they're relatively better at endgames maybe than other phases of the game? Does anybody feel like, hey, maybe my endgame is a strength?
No.
No.
I died for a second, and I would say it's definitely not a strength. So.
I don't know. It is. I only recently thought that my end games might be a strength because in my OTB games, like over 50% of my wins lately have just been me just squeezing people in end games. And then I was just like, man, these people like around my rating, because we get into like equalish end games, are just horrible at these end games. So I was like, maybe this is like where my strength lies. Maybe I should be angling for these more. But
yeah, you don't need to be, like a GM at it. You just have to feel like compared to other people you're rating, or compared to how well you play, a checkmating attack or the defense against a checkmating attack, that maybe you have better chances in end games. Yeah. Eric, do you think that ultimately the player who wins the tactics challenge or the player who wins the end game challenge, do you feel like either one of those players, like that's like a more important skill for eventually coming out on top in the finals here?
Probably the end game challenge.
Okay.
Because since we're playing with 5-second increment, I imagine that there's going to be a fair amount of end games, and if one player can just beat everybody else in those, then they might have an edge. Because, yeah, I mean, tactics are great, but you can also like fire and miss, Yeah. But if you're just solid in the ending, then that's yeah.
Cool. And Dylan, great job making up for missing the tactics challenge and the missed time. You were on fire today. how did you think your chances were going into this today? Do you think you'd be in the middle of the pack or in the top?
It's funny for me for endgames. I know Seth is good at endgames. I've played enough with him to know that, but I think a lot of his games also tend towards needing these, like, you get these like end games with certain pawn structures and you have to convert. The way I play middle games, I'm either like I have a huge advantage in an end game because I had an attack and I converted it into like an end game that should be winning for me, and then I have to convert the end game, or my middle game attack didn't work and now I have to like try to hold the draw in a worse end game. So I think because of how I play the middle game, I don't very often get like, oh, this is an even end game, and like may the best end game player win. So it was kind of like I was actually kind of interested, like then starting with even end games, like how would I do? Because it's actually not something I normally get. So.
Well, the funny thing is, I decided for some reason in our end game to go for like a crazy calculation competition. Yeah, I was like, I could hang back and try to draw this, or I just go for it and then still try to draw it with the queen.
Yeah, there was a point like you had made a pawn push and I kind of pushed back, and it could have just led to a locked pawn structure and a draw. But I noticed you kind of went for it. I'm like, man, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That was the craziest.
Yeah.
There's another takeaway that I think is interesting where like I'll be playing a game and I'll come up with a plan that I think is very good. And then a few moves later, I'll realize my plan is absolutely wrong. And then I will think I'm dead lost. And then all of a sudden I will be winning. So like there's still ups and downs in this. I feel like, one mistake, it's not just always right over.
All right. So here I want to thank all the contestants for putting on a great show. I thought you showed a lot of great skills and toughness, good time usage in many cases, and it was hopefully a very entertaining show for everyone, thanks to you all. And also, I want to give a very special thank you to Max. It was a delight to spend an afternoon with you looking at endgames, and I'm sure everybody learned a lot from you.
Yeah, good job, everyone.
All right, so chat, we say goodbye to you here. Have a great afternoon, evening, etc. There will be 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks between competitions because of the holidays, so hopefully you can enjoy those. The next Ultimate Sensei competition will be on January 8th, but in the meantime, you can still follow lessons. Here are links to the streams of several of the senseis and students, so you can see who's doing what work and who you think is getting ready to come out on top at the end of January in our final tournament. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye for now.